Hello and welcome to day two of the Sydney Regionals. We are here in the Bankstown Sport Club, just ready to get started with our top 16 on stream for us today. We have our first seed Hubert going up against our 16th seed Jake in a RP Law versus Anel match. We are very keen to see how this match goes down. It will be a best of three today.
Yep, I don't think we saw this game yesterday on stream. I can't think.
I think we saw one. We saw Cam win in about 5 minutes.
That's right. Yep. We did see the. Yep. So
hopefully this game goes a little bit longer. Jake is a very seasoned Anel player, so I'm sure his list runs a bunch of different tech options to be able to handle the RP Law matchup. So hopefully we have a great game up and ready for you guys. It will be, so we've got top 16, which means after this round we'll have top 8, top 4, and then a final. So we've got 4 rounds in total for you guys to watch today, so we can see who gets crowned the king of the Pirates here in Sydney. I think we're just getting up and ready for these players to get started in their round. All right, looks like they have all lined up and prepped their game. Jake is there in the purple with Hubert in the black.
So what kind of mulligan are you expecting from JK? What kind of cards are you looking for, Enno, when you're facing down RP Law?
Look, as Jake, you're kind of looking for your cards that can answer your opponent's board. So that's Gadatsu, that's any 5-cost removal, whether he's running anything like the 5-cost Sabo. But if he's not, then he still has answers such as Rocket, Luffy. Or if he's running Onamis, then he just doesn't want to see Onamis in his hands. He really wants those in the life. So that is kind of what we're looking here for, Jake. What do you think Hubert's looking for as RP Law?
I would say a lot of the time you just want to get these stability cards, so like your Reijus, your Queens, a lot of the drawing cards. You essentially just wanted to try to build a wide board, not really looking to use the leader effect too early, building up to this wide board with a lot of done behind. So effectively, when you find that one turn, you can then go in and swing wide for game, hopefully.
All right. It looks like it is Hubert's 5-Don turn now. This is kind of where we'll start to see cards such as Miss All Sunday, the 5-cost Kid, as well as 5-cost Queen come down. Those cards just give Hubert a little bit more stability and enable him to not get cleared by cards such as Gadatsu, because he only has 4 life.
So a lot of the time in this matchup, you'll see Enel not swinging into the RP Law leader at all. You want to be able to remove effectively all of the RP Law's cards using your big cards like Yamato. But we do see the Trafalgar Law coming down. There is 7 cards in Jake's hand. So when this is played, if you Don -1, if your opponent has 7 more cards in hand, you get them to discard 2 at random. So a lot of the RP Law decks have... This is kind of a flex card that's come in and out of the deck. But definitely, as the meta's evolved and Enel's become more popular, BY Luffy's become more prominent, this is a card that a lot of people have started putting back in for just this reason. You're not really looking to push through attacks early game, so this just allows you to get some free resources from your opponent and just get a 5k body on the board that you can then swing with later.
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that it ripped Jake's Yamato was a big one. That is definitely one of the cards that helps Anel stabilize in this matchup towards the late game. Unfortunately, Jake didn't have a Gadatsu, so he had to play the Shirahoshi, not able to removing one of Law's bodies. So Hubert is in quite a nice spot. Most of the time, you won't really see the RP Law players swing with their board. They much prefer just to swing with their leader up until they are able to go for like a lethal push. We do see another 4-cost Law come down here, ripping another 2 cards from Jake's hand. It's a 7-0 and a second
another
Yamato. That is so dreadful for Jake. There's only 4 of those cards in the deck, and it is one of the cards that definitely helps him stabilize.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is an amazing start for Hubert here. I think you're never attacking early until you have this full board. So just being able to get 4 cards out of your opponent's hand is huge at this point. Essentially, it's just 4 less counter potentially. In this case, there was no counter, But it's just 4 less cards. You then have to math through it in the end game. So I think Hubert is off to an amazing start here. We'll have to see. It does look like his hand has the Kid Killers. It doesn't really have a lot of these other go wide cards, which is probably the only thing that may concern him. He can't really build this wide board effectively that he wants to be able to push through for damage. So we'll have to see what he does in his next few turns to be able to try and build this board and actively have a way to push through this last few life.
Yeah, definitely. It is looking like his hand is a lot more kind of defensive and reactive rather than aggressive. We don't see any of those Sachi Penguins to kind of be able to Don minus to build up a board while, remaining at a high Don count, as well as no of the 5-cost kids. Those are kind of like the two main cards that you normally see RP Law slam in this matchup to build a wide board as soon as possible, as well as keeping high Don total. Jake taking this swing here. He's not too threatened because Hubert at this point only has one more swing. So at worst case, Jake's just going to take it and cycle with his leader and not really worry about it. So he's very happy to take this first one, and assuming he has something along the lines of an ace or another Yamato in his hand, he will be able to gain life throughout this game. Be interesting to see if Hubert does decide to do his first minus effect in the game, which it looks like he's going to do. He's using Raise Max to reduce the cost of Gadatsu, and then Don -3 to bottom deck the Gadatsu. It's quite an interesting choice, because honestly, a lot of the times I'll see RP Law players decide to bottom deck the Shirahoshi, as that's such a great target for Katakuri. However, we do see the Sachi Penguin, which he drew off the Queen, so exactly what I was talking about. He didn't see it earlier, so he didn't want Don -3, but now we've got the Sachi Penguin. He's more than happy to go down a couple Don to get that extra body on the board.
Yeah, I think this he still has the Yamato. That is a huge find from Jake there. I think if he didn't have the Yamato this turn or an ace, he was going to be in a lot of trouble. Facing down 4 attacks, potentially more with the rush cards that can come through from the leader effect. I think especially with how small his hand is from these laws that were played early, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. So this Yamato is helping him stabilize. We could still see the push come through if Hubert thinks he has the output to get through there. But I can still see, it still feels like we're in for a few more slower turns of...
I think Hubert's about to make Jake a very, very sad man. This is a third Trafalgar Law. This is 6 cards in total Hubert's has ripped out of Jake's hand. Can he get Jake's 4th Yamato? He gets a beige and a 10-cost ace. That is 3 of Jake's amazing boss monsters, especially in this matchup that he's just ripped from hand. And Hubert's doing the really smart thing. He's leaving Jake on 1, saying, you have to gain life. I know you have 3 less gain life cards than you normally do, because I've taken them out of your hand. And I have 5 swings going into my next turn, one of them being a 9k, because you have that Yamato on board, and I'm going to copy it with my Bon Clay. So Hubert's in a very good spot to go for a very aggressive turn. It looks like he's on 6 or 7 Don. So next turn, he's pretty much at full Don to apply all this pressure. A lot of 7k swings will come through. We'll get the 9 with the leader, and we'll probably see another push.
I think the most ideal response from Jake here would be that 4th Yamato if he has it in hand. Clearing that Bond Clay while allowing you to gain a life back. Ace, still okay, but realistically, you don't really want to swing with the ace at this point. You don't want to give them cards in hand. You're just giving them a chance to draw into these rush cards, which you just really hope they don't have. Generally, this matchup, you just want to build a full board and then go for the kill over 2 turns. And that's just realistically not going to happen yet, especially with these law blockers on board. So I think it was interesting choice. Putting the Bon Clay in life instead of putting his own Shirahoshi in life is an interesting choice. Valuing not being swung at by a potential 9k over the cycle he would get from putting that Shirahoshi in there.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, the way you look at it is that Bon Clay is a 9k swing potentially over multiple turns, where there's what is that 1 life he gains, and putting the Shirahoshi in life is just 1 life. Only stops 1 swing coming through, but getting rid of that Bon Clay, it stops the swing every single turn. Because even though you could swing into Bon Clay, Jake can now swing into the other cards. So it's essentially the same thing. Jake is essentially just going, look, if I survive this turn, if I get my good triggers, if I trigger beige, if I trigger my zero cost event, I may be in a really good spot just to remove in the entirety of Hubert's board going into his next turn.
Yeah, I definitely think he'll set himself up for a longer term success, and instead of just trying to have a shorter term goal of just trying to survive. So I think that it was a smart play to do this and put that in there. Either way, he's going to have to deal with these 5K swings coming through. Um, with the amount of Don that Hubert has and the amount of cards in Jake's hand, I could definitely see a lot of attacks coming through. A good player will play around the yellow triggers though, so you will see poking through with doing the math, figuring out the exact Don spread he wants to go for, and then doing that with the cards on board first. So he knows he wants to swing potentially 6, 7, 7, 7, 7, 9. Maybe I said 7 too many times. If he wants to do that, he'll put the 1 Don under the 6, swing, see what he does, and then react from there. You don't want to place the Don in case there are triggers which can hurt you, and this just gives you the flexibility this way. So if worst case scenario, you can't go for game because you get beiged multiple times, or they have the zero cost event, you can then at least pivot.
Definitely.
So
And Hubert looks like he wants to play really safe. This queen coming down, that's 5 Don. He's not attaching to his boards for an aggressive play. The wanting to play really safe. He's on 5 life piled up with 3 blockers. He knows he's not losing anytime soon, and he's happy to go, you know what? The longer this game goes on, I'll poke. I'll get cards out of Jake's hands. I'll swing 5, and I'll make Jake lose his own cards in hand. And the good thing, Jake's on 1 life still. He needs to find another way to gain a life to even have a remote chance of surviving Hubert's next turn, because he's just built a board. He's saying, Jake, you can't swing into any of my bodies.
100%. Yeah, I think this is the safer option, and it's really smart in this instance. There's no need to risk going for game when there is no risk of losing the game the next turn. He's on 5 life. He has too many cards to be able to remove. Enel can only remove 1 per turn realistically with that Yamato. And so if Yamato's goes, sure, I'm still going to be on 4 swings. We can play a little bit of long game. I have no issue doing that. I have a lot of cards in hand. I have a lot of Don. So I'm okay to just play this a little bit of a slow. I don't need to risk going for game and you hitting back-to-back triggers and then me not being in a good position anymore. Because if he did go in and he didn't get there, Enel can effectively clear the whole board. Hubert would be down to 3 cards in hand, and it would just be an uphill battle from that point.
Yeah, Jake deciding this is the turn he has to start attacking. If he has something like a Yamato, this is a really good play, because Hubert's most likely going to take this first swing. Then if Jake can remove 1 of the blockers, swing with the other 2, he'll push down Hubert to 2 life, and then pretty much say, you can't really attack with your blockers, because I can kill you next turn. So putting Hubert in this really awkward position if Jake does have that 4th Yamato. But it looks like he hasn't slammed it down, so he probably doesn't have the 4th Yamato. It'll probably be something like an ace where he's just going, look, I'm going to be at 2 life. Maybe I can survive this turn if I get some good luck with my triggers. I'm going to push Hubert down as hard as possible.
So we've got a quick look at Jake's hand. We do see the Rush Enel as the only larger card in his hand currently. So we are looking at a 10K coming into the leader here. Hubert just taking all these hits, it gives me the feeling that he probably will just be going for game next turn. No, if you were worried about not winning next turn, you'll probably block some of these hits and go, okay, you're never killing me the turn after if I stay at healthy enough life total and I don't have these blockers. But with 4 cards in hand, 1 life, I can definitely see Hubert pushing through here, just doing the smart thing, pushing in for 7. 7 is a really good number into every deck, but especially Enel. It's just, it always asks for 2 cards out of hand. You can essentially do the math to figure out what we do. So we see no trigger off the first one, replacing the life with the leader ability, discarding another dead card. That is rough. That would have just come off the life there.
And definitely a rough spot. Looks like we're going to be going 9. Then we've got 4 Don left over, which will probably be another 9K swing. And then after this, even if Jake can possibly counter out of it, it's just that 5K with the blocker law, which will be game 1 all wrapped up. Kind of shows a tale of what Enel is like. Sometimes when you're playing Enel and you don't see your triggers, you will struggle a lot. Especially into RP Law. A lot of the triggers that Enel does run is for the RP Law matchup. Onami, it's for RP Law. You don't really need to trigger it
Nah.
against anything else.
Yep.
Even cards such as Frankie. Look, sometimes you just need a body on the board. It's very good against RP Law. Even cards such as Kingdom Come is super impactful against RP Law. Trigger KO something. So a lot of these triggers can come in very clutch. And Jake just saw none. He didn't even see a Shirahoshi from his life. A good, I would say, third of Anel's decks is normally impactful trigger cards. So to see none from your life is kind of rough. And for Hubert to see 3 blocker laws, and to rip 3 life gain cards out of Jake's hand. Could you imagine what that last turn would have been like if Jake had one of those Yamatos or one of those aces still left in hand? We're looking at a different game, because that's another card that Jake gets to see in his hand, another chance for a trigger, and another life Hubert has to swing through. So
100%. Those Yamatos are the biggest swing pieces in this matchup. If every one he gets to play is probably the increases the odds of the Enel winning by 10%. So if he sees 4, he goes from being 30-70 to 70-30 essentially, just because it's a body, it's removal, and it's life gain. It's literally everything you need against this RP Law deck to be able to stabilize. No Gadatsu on curve. Yeah, it was just a very, very rough game from Jake's end, just not seeing anything he needed on curve. But that's just kind of how it goes sometimes with this NL deck. It is very much a deck where you don't really draw a lot. You do cycle a lot. Essentially, once you get down to 0 life, you're always being able to cycle one card through your leader ability. But you don't really... none of the decks run the searches anymore, because there's nothing really to search for. You can't search for any of your boss monsters. There's no point for it. So it does just kind of come down to, can you draw the right cards at the right time? Saying that, Hubert did play effectively the matchup flawlessly, I would say. Essentially, he did exactly what he needed to do at the correct times. Play cards, see the blocker laws, rip cards from hand, but just
rip the correct cards from hand.
But the key point is just never swing with those battle cards. You saw Jake there just not being able to clear board because you just don't... Hubert just never swung with the battle cards. He could never swing back into them. And so you effectively, even when he could poke and go, okay, well, I got 3 swings, he's on 1 life, I could get a couple cards out of hand. He chose not to, with just saying that, okay, I'm just going to build a board. You need to have 5 cards on board before you want to start doing it, because you need to have maximum punishment. Because, you know, as soon as you turn a single card sideways, it's probably gone. Enel is just going to swing back into it with an ace. And so effectively, you need to just go, okay, this is my best board, I'm going in with it now. And I think Hubert found the perfect time to do that.
No, definitely. And just the wider your board is, harder it is for Anel. One of our friends put it very well. The more bodies against Anel you see, the exponentially worse its defense is. If it sees 1 body plus leader, Anel knows it's not dying, because it's essentially on 2 life. When you see 2 bodies, it's like, okay, it's kind of rough. 3 bodies, it gets even harder. 4 bodies, it's looking bad. And 5 bodies, you kind of have to see triggers to get out of those swings. So it is definitely a smart thing from Hubert just to be able to build these boards out. Now, we're about to start game 2, and Jake deciding to go first, gets his 1 Don and passes turn. Both of these decks don't really have turn 1 plays or turn 2, so our first couple turns are going to be draw. Let's get a couple Don, let's pass the turn.
Yep, 100%. It's definitely a go first kind of matchup as well. Enel really wants to go first just to see that Yamato on curve and the removal. RP Law doesn't matter. It doesn't really care as much. It does have the plays you can do both depending on the builds with these irons and Bonclays. It's just more of a deck that you want to take away what your opponent wants, essentially, instead of playing to your strengths. Because your strength is you are just the best deck. You don't really mind either way. There's a reason the leader is getting banned next set. It is just... it gets even stronger. So the flexibility it provides is the strongest part of the deck for sure.
100%. And it will be very interesting whether we see Jake play a very defensive game, happy to play cards such as this Frankie, which you normally wouldn't see him play in this matchup, just because he knows, well, Hubert's running at least 3 RP laws. Maybe he's running the 4th as well of those blocker laws. And look at this, Jake is sitting with 5 cards in hand. He probably wants to take this, which he is, but he can only take it because he played that Frankie down. Because he now has 1 less card in hand, he is happy to kind of take these lives. Because at the end of the day, Jake does want to be sitting around that 1 life, so his Yamato gains a life. So essentially goes plus back in hand size, as well as removing a body. But he doesn't want to get hit with those law blockers. He doesn't want those Yamatos ripped from hand. So it's a very strong adjustment that we see from Jake.
It is a very risky but smart strategy from him for sure. So you effectively go down one card in hand, but you're saying this minus one card on hand, I can probably do something with it eventually, and it's not the minus two. You are risking the fact that Hubert is may not even drawn at this game. There is no way to know, which is kind of the you're gambling, but it's more the balance of if is the worst case scenario bad enough where I need to account for it, even if there's not a 100% possibility of it happening.
Definitely.
So I think it's a very very smart adjustment. Worst case, even if Hubert doesn't have it, it's still the correct play to make.
We do see this 5-cost kid come down, which is one of the cards I was talking about earlier. RP Law loves to play this into almost every deck, as it's one of the reasons it can stay on such high Don total. Now, we'll just pull it up for you guys now. So what the 5-cost kid does, it is a blocker. And it also has a your turn effect once per turn. When you remove or minus any Don from your pile, you get to add one Don back from your Don deck in active mode. So essentially, your leader, which was a Don -2, Don -3, is now a Don -2, and it restands the Don, which is kind of a crazy thing to talk about. You get access to one more Don every turn for swinging, as well as not having to remove as many. So your next turn, you have more Don that you would normally have, as well as playing cards such as this Queen. I get another blocker out. I get to cycle my hand, and I don't lose any Don. These are just really strong effects from RP Law.
It has been interesting to see, I guess, the evolution of RP Law over time. It used to be this full aggro, I'm going to smack your face as fast as possible, I'm just going to try and kill you. Then it turned into a more control, like, okay, I'm going to abuse the fact that I can just minus and remove everything, and nothing can really survive against me. And then people kind of realized, okay, well, I can already kind of do both of those just naturally. What I need to do is I need to draw cards. If I don't draw my cards, I don't win the game, essentially. If you just have none of the good cards in the hand, then you can just never win. So all these decks have just gone to, okay, I'm just putting 4 Queen in. You just need the maximum amount of card draw in this deck. Because if you just don't hit the Raise Max, the Gordons, the ability to be able to see these cards, you just don't really have a chance. So I think it is a good adjustment by a lot of these RP Law players.
All right, so we see Hubert play down Gordon that he's probably going to use at some point in the future. It has no counter, so it doesn't really matter if it's in hand or not. And it just allows the Don -3 to come down to play out this Reiju. Now, on Jake's side, this is his 9 Don turn, but he's still sitting on 3 life. So if he plays the Yamato, it's not killing anything. So, sorry, it is killing stuff, but it's not gaining any life. So he can kill anything he wants up to cost of 7, but it's not gaining any life. But it looks like what we're going to see is a category removing that 5-cost kid. That 5-cost kid, as we was talking about, it is one of the biggest power moves in this matchup. So being able to remove it just means Hubert will no longer have access to as much Don, as well as an essentially really awkward to remove 6k body. We do see the Gordon minus power on that category. We'll probably see another sort of power reducer come down at some point in this turn, just so Hubert can remove that category. He is cautious. That last game, Jake did get relatively close to killing him. It was kind of, if Hubert didn't win on that turn, he would have lost. And if Jake had any other card besides Rush Anel on that turn, any of life healing, it could have been a lot closer game.
Yeah, 100%. We do see more of a stabilization from Jake this game. Oh, that is a huge trigger. So, Max, would you like to explain the trigger?
Yeah. So that's Kingdom Come. That was one of the cards we're talking about. One of these triggers that is just amazing to have against RP Law. Its trigger, you add up the total life between you and your opponent, and then you get to KO one of your opponent's cards with cost less than or equal to the total life. So in this case, there was 7 life remaining, so Jake could just kill anything on Hubert's board. Absolutely amazing trigger to see. We now see the Otama come down from Hubert, essentially reducing the cost of Anel, also the power of Anel to 3,000. So when Hubert does use his leader's Don minus effect, we will be able to bottom deck that category. Mind you, in comparison to last game, Jake still has 2 more bodies on the board. He has that Anel, he has that Frankie. Both of these cards are just kind of sitting there going, when you eventually decide to attack with one of your bodies, I will be there to attack back into you. So he's taking a very different route from the first game. Um, Playing the blocker law. However, Jake has played around it. He does not have enough cards in hand for Hubert to be able to rip. So obviously Hubert doesn't choose to do the Don minus effect, but it's a very interesting board state. RP law, normally known as this super aggressive deck, is just sitting on board with 4 blockers.
It is very interesting. Shariah, very good into a lot of matchups. This one, it's just a 5k swing most of the time, but it is just the defense that's needed. We do see the Gadatsu come down, which KOs anything with cost less than or equal to your opponent's life total, which because of that Kura to Kuri is currently 5. He can currently just remove anything but the Sanji off board. No need to play these life-getting cards if there is no need and you have a better play. So it's a very smart play to just go, okay, I'm going to take this turn. Just have a little bit slower turn. Don't need to play these big bodies. I'm just going to play Gadatsu and just remove 2 of your bodies anyway. It is very much starting to swing back into Enel's favor here, I would say. Developing more of a board than RP Law somehow. I can see next turn, maybe the turn after, just get these pokes in where you go, okay, I'm going to kill you over the next 2 turns. I'm going to poke you down from 5 to probably 2, if I had to guess, and then from 2 to 0 potentially.
Definitely. So what do you think Hubert's best kind of line of play is to reduce the amount of threat on Jake's board? Because just looking at it, 4 bodies is kind of scary. I'm not super comfortable if I'm in Hubert's spot. So what would you do in Hubert's spot here?
Be sad, but I think playing the Queen is the correct. He just needs to see more cards. I don't think he has a Kid Killer in him. I don't think is that a Kid
He's got one.
He does have one Kid Killer. Yeah,
Got
so
one in hand.
I think potentially he's looking for a second Kid Killer. Going to be removing one of the Gadatsus this turn. You kind of just say this Enel that you have is living forever. Whenever you try and remove it once per turn, you can take a life instead. Unless someone has a Luffy on the board. No, neither deck runs a Luffy. Enel does, but it's not going to be on the board to affect themselves. So I think the idea is Hubert just wants to keep on building this white board, keep on poking with leader, getting these cards down to 1 life, get him to have no cards in hand, and then just go, I just need to find these Kid Killers so I can have 8 attacks in 1 turn, essentially. I can imagine if Jake goes in this turn and Hubert feels he is in a winnable position, he will just take these hits. He does not want to use cards on board to defend life when he needs them for attackers instead.
No, definitely. And Hubert is doing a really smart thing. What he is doing is he is just swinging with his leader. And it pretty much puts Jake in this awkward spot where if Jake takes it, then Hubert can actually start attaching Don and start applying pressure. But if Jake doesn't take it, he just leaves him on 2 life and goes, your life gain cards, your Yamato, your Ace are not getting anywhere as near as much value as they would if you were down on 1 life.
Yep. So we do see Hubert take the first hit. I imagine we'll see an Ace come out. Now the choice is, do I gain the life or do I gain Rush? So the Ace 10 drop says, when I am played, you can gain a life. If you have 2 or less life, you get to gain Rush. So it is an active choice you as a player get to make, whether or not you value the Rush over the life. So in this instance, you're not really needing the Rush to swing into any battle cards. You don't really care about dealing damage. 1 life is huge. In yellow, that's a trigger, and triggers are amazing in this game. So you would just rather that, and then if you think about it, effectively Ace just says draw a card eventually as well, which is also huge.
Most definitely. And one of the biggest things is you're just kind of delaying Hubert. Hubert is slowly running out of cards in hand because all of his plays will generally require 1 to 2 cards out of hand. And just the more options you have for triggers, which this Ace gives Shirahoshi, which just allows Jake to see more cards. Hopefully for Jake start to see 1 to 2 more boss monsters. However, Jake has to be very careful. He doesn't just discard all his counter because Hubert still has a very wide board that he can start attaching Don and applying as much pressure as he needs to. So we do see a Shirahoshi and Gadatsu get discarded here. I believe Jake is with 4 cards in hand. So he does still have a bit of defense, but hopefully for him, he still has plays going into the next turn.
I do think that's one of, I guess, the biggest one of the biggest learning curves within Enel is knowing when to keep counter cards, when to keep these life gain cards, and finding that right balance between, okay, I need just enough counter, so if he does try and finish me off, I will not die, but then I also need to keep enough cards to be able to win the game. So I think finding that balance is where you find the real skill expression within NL.
Definitely, and I think Jake is trying to get Hubert to attack with as many bodies as he can this turn, so he can swing all of them straight back in, all of Jake's cards straight back into the bodies, and try and remove all of the pressure Hubert has for the next couple turns. However, it is a risky play. Hubert has this 6k queen with one Don becomes a 7k. Sanji can do the same thing, attaching 2 Don to each of Shariah and Reiju will make them all 7k swings. So that is the potential for 4 7k swings to come down to Jake's essential 4 cards in hand, 5 cards in hand with 2-ish life. I say 2-ish because you don't really get the other one in hand, but you've got 2 chances for triggers.
Yep.
So it is a rough spot for Jake to be in, as well as if Hubert has any rush cards, these are just more potential threats that Jake has to deal with. So taking that swing from Sachi Penguin really makes Jake have to think about how he wants to counter. He does use a zero cost event along with a rush Anel to get out of it. 3 cards in hand. Hubert has 3 swings left on board. It will be a 7k swing at life with Reiju.
So yeah, looking at what the Donna's left, and you think about it, this is going to be a 7, then probably a 7 with the Sanji, 7 with the Shariah, and then you can see the leader effect coming down to play a Kid Killer, which is another 7. So if I'm in Jake's shoes, I'm thinking, okay, I'm probably going to have to deal with 4 7k attacks this turn. Do I think I can survive them, and what is in my hand? Because if I think I can survive them, I will take this one, see what the life I get is, see if it's a trigger, and then I will just go down to 0 life if I have the life gain card in hand as well. It's a very tough position, though.
So Jake does take this, looking to see whether it is a trigger worth triggering. Most of the time, triggers are worth triggering. However, it could be something such as a Frankie, where it's like, is the body worth the potential dead draw I could get off it, or am I just keeping the 2k? Very interesting to see if Jake does decide to trigger, as this could be one of the decisions that does count for this game. And we do see the beige. Beige is one of the damned triggers that most players don't want to see.
It is an interesting choice in this instance. It's, do I beige and say effectively something can't attack? Or do I keep this in hand and say, okay, I can use this as a 2k instead, survive the onslaught, and then everything's in rest mode, and then I can win next turn instead. So now, because Sanji can't attack, it effectively is just saying, okay, I'm a blocker now. It's fine. I'll just do my other job.
Yep.
So you can effectively try and bait your opponent by not triggering the beige there. But at the same time, if you trigger beige, it turns a 2k counter into a 3k counter effectively. Because you know it's going to swing it for 7. So maybe Jake did the math and went, okay, I actually don't have enough cards in hand. So this is my only out here.
Definitely, and we've got swinging in for 7. Most likely afterward, Hubert will come in for a 8k swing with Kid Killer, trying to pressure for game. And if that happens, Jake kind of has 1 or 2 options. Well, A, he has the first counter out of the swing.
Yep.
And then after that, if he is able to counter out, we will see Jake have to make a decision of whether it's worth going for game, or whether he has another card that can gain life and swing back into board and try his very hardest to go for board. There is the 2 and the 2-2Ks out of Jake's hand, so he does survive the turn. Now, Jake really needs to be able to gain life this turn, as well as deal with Hubert's board.
I think a life gain card here will be huge from Jake. So Ace, Katakuri probably the worst option, doesn't impact the board as much. So Ace or Yamato would be huge. You just gain that life, just turning back on that NL leader ability. Essentially, you go from 0 life to 3, essentially, is a huge thing off of 1 card. If he doesn't have those, he may be, okay, he has 4 life, I have technically 5 attacks, you have a blocker, what do I do? It is a very tough position depending on what's in Jake's hand, and depending on whether or not you think you can survive another turn, even with that extra life, only having effectively 1 card in hand after you play anything.
Definitely. And with Hubert having 3 cards in hand and all, I believe, having counter, it is going to be hard for Jake to swing enough pressure into anything to remove it. Obviously, the prime targets that need to be removed, you want to get rid of that Kid Killer because that's a 7k swing. And that's what we're definitely seeing the first swing go into. You want to remove, you want to try to get the Queen out of here there because that's a 6k swing. And then ideally, you want to try and remove something along the lines of the Shariah or Reiju. But with 3 cards left in the hand of Hubert, it will be quite hard for Jake to remove them. He is swinging 6 again into the Shariah, seeing the block come down from Sanji as well as the counter from Reiju. So that's 3 bodies that will live the turn for Hubert, and then the pass from Jake. Now, one really interesting thing here from Jake is he has 1 card in hand as well as that Shirahoshi trigger. Now, the way that the Enel leader works is once you trigger Shirahoshi, you can then choose to do Shirahoshi's on play or Enel's leader effect first. So if Jake is able to counter out of a 5k swing with that 1 card in hand, he can get his leader effect off without having to get the discard, which is a super cool thing for Jake to do. So let's see if Hubert plays around it by swinging at least 7 for his first swing.
Hubert is down on Don a little bit this turn, so he did have to use... He is down to 5 Don because he did have to use the leader effect and not really get that value back up again last time, pushing through damage with the Kid Killer. So these attacks, although there will be 3 more, potentially 4 with another rush from hand, they are very large attacks, which might help out Jake in this case. Or discarding 2 dead cards, 2 aces off that is a very rough feeling. Swinging 7 again, saying no trigger. We'll swing another 7, and then that's it.
That is
Hubert takes it.
GG. That is our end of our first round. Hubert does 2-0. Jake starting Swiss going 8-0. Hubert now wins his first round of Top Cut, going undefeated again. He is currently proceeding on to top 8, still undefeated. Let's see how long he can take this undefeated run.
Yeah, currently 10-0. It's like RP Law is a deck that I thought was too RG for me, but this man has mastered it. Watching him play, he makes the deck look very consistent, and he shows the true power of it, just always knowing what to do and to using the cards that he has in hand in the correct way, and not just going, oh, I don't have the optimal play. I don't know what to do. He goes, okay, I've got these cards. This is the best thing I could do, and I'm going to put myself in a winning position every time. It's great to see.
So we do have a lot of other rounds wrapping up in our top 16. And we will be continuing on very shortly into our top 8. All right, we're going to do a quick check to see whether we can get an interview from Hubert. But there is the rest of our bracket. Hubert is progressing on either versing Zihao or Minkyu. That will be either a RP Law Mirror or a Lucci game. The other matchups we have in top 8, we did have a Lucci Mirror, which means Lucci will be progressing. We'll see at least 1 Lucci in top 8. There was another RP Law versus Enel matchup, and just in that game, Jake is a great Enel player, but it showed how rough the matchup can be for Enel. So we'll see which one comes out on top. One of the matchups we didn't get on stream yesterday, RP Law versus Lucci. Now, I know, Kevin, you are a Lucci player. How do you think that matchup is going to go?
It is a very... I heard people say from both sides, oh, it's really hard for RP Law. It's like, oh, it's hard for Lucci. It's actually a very 50-50 matchup, I feel like. It is very much, in these first 3 turns of the game, it feels like it decides a lot of how the tempo of the game's going to go. If you as a Lucci player can stabilize, remove these first few cards through key cards like Brook and get in the lobby, you feel like you're in a good position where they don't have enough pressure to put onto you. You can then go into these later game turns and keep their board clear. But if you can't answer these first few cards from the Law, it actually just feels like it's a complete opposite. Like, you just can't do anything. So I actually do feel that, although people say that RP Law is Lucci's favorite RP Law, I actually feel like there's a lot that can happen in those first few turns which determines it. And yeah, it definitely does feel... I probably actually do have like a 50-50 matchup into that.
No, definitely. And Cam, we did have on stream twice yesterday, was a very seasoned RP Law player. Won both the games he was on stream before 10 Don. So I am sure he has a great idea how that matchup is meant to be played. Then if we look at our 7 versus 10, that is another Enel versus RP Law. So very rough for all of these Enels that made it into top 16. All of them got paired up against an RP Law, which is out of everything in the top 16, probably the worst matchup that they want to see. They'll prefer to play the Mira. They'll prefer to play against BY. They would even prefer to play against Lucci. But we'll see whether any of the Nels were able to make it out of this RP Law gauntlet. Moving on, we have Gavin played against... I don't know how to pronounce that name. I am sorry. Zihuan playing RP Law. That is one of the matchups we had on stream yesterday, Black Yellow versus RP Law, and it really is a tempo-based matchup. So if Gavin can stabilize playing Black Yellow, he will be in a very good spot. So interesting to see who comes out on top of that matchup. And our last matchup of top 16 was Black Yellow Luffy versus Lucci. Now, this matchup is probably as bad for the Lucci player as it is for the Enel players against RP Law. A lot has to kind of go right, and you have to play the matchup meticulously. But all in all, hopefully all these players were able to play their best and enjoyed their matchups, and it'll be cool to see who made it out into top 8.
Yeah, for sure. I do think we will be getting a few, potentially a few RP Law mirrors in the future. RP Law is in a position where they have the good matchup spread kind of running through this. There's not really any decks in the top that really give them issues, and none of them paired each other first round either. So I think we'll probably be seeing a few RP Laws if I just had to go based up of matchup knowledge. In the next round, so we'll have to see though.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of potentials for RP Law, that 1 versus 16 and then the 8 versus 9. If RP Law won both of those, we could have an RP Law mirror in our top 8, as well as 2 versus 15 and 7 versus 10. If RP Law was able to get both of those wins, then that will be another RP Law mirror. So very keen to see how top 16 went and what we will get to see in top 8. But that's kind of all we've got for you now, and we will catch you guys in the top 8 round.
Players in the side event, you may begin.
shackled in chains. These veins long for the pleasure and pain. This rain gives me, came for the fix, left with a wrist covered in gold. Became a mold of a stereotypical rap nigga. Poison into my system, the system is like a prison. Lovely land of the free, but this dream is a contradiction. We listen to the media and all them lies they feeding us. Tried to silence us in the streets, so we threw graffiti up. Peep the message, I'm restless, working these long hours. Saving up my bread to take back what's really ours. The fight for freedom, that revolution is started. These crooked cops shooting at black males like targets. See, this the world we live in. To take back what's given. And think the only way to progress is revert to killing. Spilling blood on the pavement like sacrifices and payment. Gathering clips of knowledge and aiming it at the system. Damn, another black life gone, but they're resurrected in lyrics when I wrote this song. Young kings, beautiful queens slain in broad light. Got me thinking if my color's wrong, how can I do right? Yeah, should I fight or should I fucking fall? Will you watch me die or answer a dying call? I'm small but I can cause a big impact. I just want us all to live in peace, why can't we have that?
Criminal who must be put away. Another innocent victim of suicidal maniac.
right, everyone, and welcome back to our top 8 round of the One Piece Originals here in Sydney. Today, we are going to have a Lucci versus Enel. We have Jacob Cook on Enel, who went 7-1 in Swiss, and then Tyson Haynes on Lucci, who went 6-2 in Swiss. It will be a great game. Really keen to see this matchup. What do you think of the matchup, Kevin?
I think it's a very close matchup. Definitely Lucci favoured slightly, depending on what lines the other player can take. But saying that, it definitely just does matter what Lucci draws into as well. If Lucci just doesn't draw into any cards, it can be very rough to just do anything against Enel. So I think as the Lucci player, you're looking to find these big boss monsters. A lot of the board clear. Lobby, useful, not 100% needed in this. It does make the math a lot easier, but generally you just want to be finding ways to cycle and just see these geckos, and if you run the E-Show is a huge card in this matchup. Otherwise, as Enel, you're just looking to do your general game plan of play cards, gain life, and keep swinging. So this is one of those rare matchups where, as Enel, it's actually correct just to swing every turn. So effectively, at a certain point, you want to say that I have enough big cards on board where I can just kill you. You have to be careful of not putting up enough of a defense. Because if I have 2 or 3 of these big bodies, which you just haven't been able to remove, by this poking game I've done early, I actually have a chance to just win without having to worry about clearing your board.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things is Jacob was able to choose whether he goes first or second because he is the higher seeding from Swiss. So, Kevin, why do you think Jacob decided to go first?
So it used to be that you want to take the second off Lucci because Lucci's second curve is really good. You get the lobby into the Gecko on curve is really good. But turns out if you're Enel and you play the 7-drop Enel on curve, you're actually in a really good position. That card is really hard to remove as a black player. Unless Tyson is running the Nightmare Luffy that counts as a Luffy and plays that on 6 Don, you have no way to remove that 7-drop Enel realistically the turn it's played. So you're getting at least 2 attacks with that. And like I said earlier, if you can get the Lucci player down to 2 or 1 life, when you get to this end game where you just like Lucci's trying to move every turn, you're trying to play a big body every turn, it actually puts you in a really good position where if 1 or 2 of these stick, you can just then swing back for game. And Lucci has to actively try and keep a board while keeping up defense as well. So it will be interesting to see. We do see the Brook come down and remove that Shirahoshi. So that 2-drop Shirahoshi is a blocker. When it is KO'd, you get to add a life. So the more of those you play against black, the better position you are as an Enel player as well. A lot of those Enel decks do sometimes run them, sometimes not. It is very much a flex card. It is not very good into a lot of other decks, which can just like blue up your Lord, just remove it. But at the same time, it's a 1k counter. It's okay. You just counter it off. Against black, it is huge.
Speaking of huge, Tyson just triggered the Ennis Lobby, one of the cards which does help him reduce a lot of the power in Enel's deck. A lot of those big boss monsters. And just triggering it off live. That's always has to be such a nice feeling. You know, you're playing against yellow, which is the trigger dot deck, and you just go, you know what? How about it's my turn to get a little bit lucky? How about I just, you know, I missed it earlier. I don't really have the right time to play it on curve anymore if I want to keep playing all my good boss monsters, such as that Gecko Mori that just got milled. How about I just trigger it? So it is quite a good effect there. We do see the Lucci swing 5 into leader, reducing the cost of Sabo, and then Ennis Lobby, which we just triggered, reducing it by another 2. And then here comes the Gecko Moria. We will be playing a Spandom to search top 3 for a CP card. Unfortunately, Tyson did not hit any, so they all go to the discard. And then we use Lucci's effect to KO the Sabo. Building a board is one of the things Black wants to do. As we said against RP Law last round, Enel does not like to see multiple threats kind of swinging into it. So being in this spot is quite good for Tyson, just being able to get 2 bodies out for 1 card. It's very nice.
Yeah, 100%. The Gecko value of effectively paying 8 Don for up to, like, I think the number is like 19 Don worth of value. It's actually, it's just too much value. That is why people were calling for the card to be banned. It does a lot for, with the amount of combos you can pull off now. With it is insane. We do see the category coming out, putting that in the life that is the bane of any Lucha players existence is just not having just it getting removed for free while there's another big body you don't have to remove. We have actually seen 3 geckos so far from Tyson already as well. 2 in the trash, now that 1 in the life. There is only 1 more he has access to, which is in his hand, thankfully for him. But you do just get to a state where if you just don't have a body to play that can answer something, you just kind of run out of things to do as Lucci, which is the worst case scenario.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And Tyson now is definitely going to try and remove that category from Jacob's board. Kind of figuring out what the best way to do it is. He has the endless lobby, which can reduce it by another 2, as well as some of those pesky reducers in hand. I believe the Tempest Kick, which if you have 10 or more cards in trash, you get to reduce one of your opponent's cards by 3, and you always get to draw a card whenever you play it, which is quite nice. Tyson looks like he has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards in trash, so Tempest Kick will end up being the 10th card, so it does work, which is super strong. Jacob triggering the Shirahoshi from life. He's more than happy to go down to 0 life because he knows, realistically, Tyson's not attaching 9 onto this Bandit and swing, but if he is, I'm sure Jacob has a thick book of a hand and is more than willing to counter have it, because it means he's not playing another Gecko Moria. There's no cards coming out of, there's no big bodies coming out, so there's nothing that Jacob really is threatened by next turn, but it looks like Tyson will be going for the Tempest Kick, assumingly followed by the 8-drop Gecko, potentially going for that 8-cost Sabo that he just drew off the Tempest Kick. 8-cost Sabo was one of the cards that we saw yesterday get played in, I believe, the same matchup, which was super impactful. It carries a 5 or less and a 3 or less. But first of all, we're seeing the Gecko. We just want to see as many bodies come down as possible. Well, it looks like we're only going to be playing the Lucci. We're not playing anything else from our discard pile off the Gecko, so it doesn't get as much value, but we are able to remove the Katakuri from play.
Yep, so I think it's an interesting choice. I think it's a good move. You definitely have to remove the Katakuri this turn. You have various options of how to get there. It's just how can you do it with the least amount of cards from hand, the least use of resources, and the least waste of resources as well. So it will be interesting to see what Tyson will save. Running the Borsalino is a very interesting tech choice. I think you have to counter out of the leader swings because you know the big 10k is coming down to swing. Whether it swings to your leader or in the face, it's fine, but you cannot go too low in life. So I think 1 or 2 is probably the break point of Lucci as a leader, especially because this ace is really hard to remove unless you have these Tempest Kicks. So it does look like Tyson has a few in hand, which is good. It's just how many is going to use. Is there a more efficient way to do this without having to use both those? If you can do it without using Tempest Kick, it is a huge resource because that means you have it for next turn and you then don't need to use it for this turn instead.
Yep, that 10-cost ace does come down and will always be a big threat. Tyson doing everything he can to remove it. We know he has that 8-cost Sabo, which is probably the easiest way for him to remove it this turn. Now, the big question coming down for Tyson is, I get to KO a 3 or less as well as a 5 or less. Am I KOing that Shirahoshi blocker, or is it actually just fine to kind of leave it there? Because when you KO the Shirahoshi blocker, Jacob does gain a life, but just having that blocker, which is kind of unkillable, is also the same as just, gaining a life, because it's not going anywhere at any time soon. So it's an interesting decision point for Tyson to make, and it kind of just comes down to whether Tyson thinks there's any point in the game he wants to be swinging into Jacob's board. If he does, it's probably worth getting rid of that Shirahoshi, as it means Jacob has less options, and always removing your opponent's options is a very nice thing to be doing.
Yeah, 100%. So we do see the leader effect coming off. We see the discard of the king to come. He did hit that off trigger, but unfortunately there was only 3 life in total, so he couldn't KO anything. And he figured, spend them, not really a threat. I'll just keep this in hand and discard off leader, so I don't go -2 cards in hand, just for the effect of carrying that. So he does choose to remove both of those, and then we'll gain the life back.
The Shirahoshi was blocked, was used as a blocker against, I believe,
Gecko, yep.
the Gecko
swing.
Moria. So Tyson, he didn't have a decision point. Jacob kind of made up the mind for Tyson, staying on 1 life. I'm assuming something such as a Yamato is probably coming down. Jacob really wanting to stay on that 1 life. So when he plays a Yamato, Lucci can be KO'd. But it really just depends what Jacob has in hand, because Tyson has a lot of big bodies on board to threaten a lot of pressure over the next couple of turns.
This is definitely the point of the game where, as Enel, you're kind of starting to slowly fall behind. He's been able to remove every card you've played every turn. He's starting to develop these big bodies, which are frustrating to deal with. And you kind of have to pivot from, okay, I'm going to clear board. I'm instead probably going to just swing your leader. If you have no blockers, if I can get you to 1, if you then can't play a blocker and you can't remove my board, potentially I go for game. But he is choosing to clear the board. He thinks, okay, I'm on 2 life. I have more. If I have more life gain in hand, I can just slowly keep on poking down. And Jacob does know we have seen all 4 geckos, so he does know that Tyson cannot play another gecko this turn, which is huge. His only options are these other 8 costs he might run, like the Isho, another Sabo if he runs it. So it will be interesting to see what Tyson can do this turn.
Yeah, Tyson choosing to attach, looks like 3 Don to his leader, leaving 7 open. That most likely means Tyson wants to be able to remove the ace with something along the lines of the 6-cost Brook that we see in his hand. The 6-cost Brook is able to trash one of your opponent's cards with a cost of 4 or less. So Tyson, with Stage being able to reduce it by another 2, reduces Ace's cost down to 7, and then using one of those Tempest kicks, I believe he still has in hand, it can reduce it down to 4, which is a perfect math for this Brook to be able to remove the ace. So very strong plays from Tyson, being able to consistently remove Anel's board, which ideally, this is exactly what Anel does not want to happen.
Yes, yeah, exactly. This is the key to Lucci winning this matchup through this grind fest is remove everything every turn, just keep poking. There is a certain point where you have to switch gears and go, okay, I can no longer remove everything because I just don't have the resources. I now have to just block her up and just keep my board alive and just keep on swinging and just slowly get these resources out of hand. So we do see the Brook come down, KOing, well, trashing a 4-cost or less, very, very significant, especially into some matchups that it does trash and not KO. So if he was to use that on the Shirahoshi blocker, Jacob would not gain a life. But it is also just a good card to just get around things like the Sabo blocker as well in general.
Definitely, as we see one of those Manga Sabo blockers get used as counter. That is another ace that is coming down here for Jacob. Gaining another life, having another swing. I'm assuming this swing will be into lead. Jacob's kind of identified, look, I maybe have 1 more turn left, if that, to play a little bit of defense. So I really need to apply pressure. I really need to go for the game over the next 2 turns. And Jacob must be so happy seeing that Marga Sambo getting used as counter, as it kind of gives him just that little bit of hope that maybe Tyson doesn't have any blockers in hand. But we will see what happens. 9K swing from Tyson gets taken by Jacob. Jacob deciding what to discard off of the leader effect, gaining the life first, and then just choosing what to discard.
Yeah, this Isho in Tyson's hand is a little bit too late. I think it could be played this turn. He will be facing 2 attacks though, and so he will be able to rip some cards out of hand and get this through. But it may just be a little bit too slow. He may be worried that he could then just not be able to get out of this next turn.
Definitely, Jake kind of has to look at this and go, well, I probably have to counter out of this, because getting out of a 5K and then a 16K swing is potentially a little bit unrealistic. So losing 3 cards in hand to get out of this Sabo swing is extremely rough here. Looks like we're getting rid of 2 2Ks and a 1K. Jacob still sitting here with 1 life. Still looks like he has a decent amount of cards in hand, and Tyson just choosing what he wants to do this turn. He keeps flicking that Isho back to the front. Maybe he's tempted to use the Isho kind of as a little bit of a, well, let's rip some cards from hand because he doesn't think he'll die. But we've got the 9K swing from Brook. So we've only got 7 left. Isho's definitely not coming down. Most likely going to be a 9 into a 7 into that beautiful little manga sabo that Tyson keeps flicking us, keeps showing us in his hand. Just wants to flex on us casters back here.
Yeah, I think this is a very, very smart play. So you swing with the 9 first with Brook, and you say, if you take this, there is a world where I just go for it. Depending on triggers, maybe not. Depending on maybe like person reads, you can maybe get a feel of whether or not they feel comfortable taking this. It is very much a feels-based thing, kind of thing, whether or not you want to go for game. But it's definitely safe just to go for the 9, go for the 7, then play the Sabo. And it's like, Sabo says, I am not dying next turn. And then if you're on 0 life, you need another life gain. And then if that happens, then we just go again. And I think that'll probably be what happens here. We just keep on going around in this circle until someone just runs out of resources.
Definitely.
So, but yeah, the big decision point here is, do you swing in for all of it, or do you just swing in for 7 and play the Sabo?
Definitely. I think Tyson kind of just has to look at it and decide, look, if I go all in, is there a chance I lose? Which, honestly, yes, there is.
Yes.
Versus if I just play this Sabo blocker, do I realistically have a chance to lose at all? Especially because Tyson's hand is filled with a bunch of counter. So we do see the Sabo come down, drawing 2 Spandom. It's not the card that is needed the most, but it is still counter, discarding 2 dead cards from hand. And Tyson's pretty much saying, look, I've got you on the ropes. Your hand isn't big enough to survive another one of my turns. And I got this Sabo down, so you're not killing me this turn.
Yeah, 100%. I think Tyson recognizes, like, okay, taking 5 cards out of the NL player's hand is just good enough. That's all I needed to accomplish that turn. And just give Jacob just something to worry about. He doesn't really have a straightforward option this turn. He can look to swing into the Brook, swing into the Gecko potentially, try and get some of these cards off board. But if Tyson just does the same thing again, where he just goes 9-9, big number, and just plays another Sabo, you're essentially the same thing. But then Jacob just lost a few more cards in hand. It essentially just becomes, he's just slowly losing this attrition battle. So we do see the ace swing into Sabo for 10 into 9. It's just going to be an easy 2k out of. Keeping any board alive where it's easy.
Yep, Tyson very meticulously going, look, there's no reason for me not to counter out these swings. You got no chance to kill me, so if I just stay and keep as all these swings into this next turn, I have way too much pressure for you to deal with, and I'm assuming we're going to see a lot of big number swings going into this turn for Tyson. Now, one of the big things, Kevin, is there anything that Jacob can really do if Tyson does draw all these outs that he has seen in Game 1? Do you think there's any adjustment we can see made from Jacob besides maybe just getting a bit more lucky and drawing into the 7-cost Danelle?
It's really hard. It does feel like there is a lot of play to be had in this matchup, but it just does depend on who draws more of what they need to see. So we didn't see the 7-cost Enel come down from Jacob on that 7-Don turn, which really hurt him and pushed him back. Potentially, if he does go first again, could be looking at pushing more damage to face instead of trying to control this board and just accepting that he is going to lose the board control eventually. So it'll be interesting to see. So we do see the 9. So generally, that is a huge trigger. The free life off of this. So discard a card from your hand, gain a life. Technically, it's gain a life, then discard a card from your hand, same as Enel leader. So if you want 0 life as Enel and you have no cards in hand, you trigger that. You get 2 life for discarding 0 cards.
Yep.
So it's very good. But yeah, we do see
9k swing. Is it another trigger that can save Jacob today? He's thinking.
beige would be huge here. You can beige the Sabo, nothing, it can no attack, and then he only has a 5k swing for game, and then all you need is a 1k to get out of it.
The 9k swing from the Sabo. If Jacob did have the 2-2s and the 1, he would be able to get out of it, but it is just 2 1ks in his hand. Super close game, and honestly, way too close for Tyson.
Yeah,
Kind of going into that last turn, Tyson is super confident going, you know what, there's not much that Jacob can do to kind of successfully counter out of this, and then boom, that zero cost event kind of triggers, and Tyson now goes, oh, if he has the cards, he has the cards, and I can't really do anything about it. So that is how close the matchup can come down to. So we will see how these players adjust going into game 2. Because Jacob was unfortunate and did lose that first game, he gets to decide whether they go first or second, and I'm pretty sure that Jacob is going to take this same strategy, go first, and hope to draw into the the 7 cost Enel this game. He only runs 3 of them, which is pretty standard for Enel. It can be quite hard to run 4 because then you have 16 of your boss monsters all having 0 counter, which can be quite rough, especially if you're not drawing into your Shirahoshis and other cards to kind of cycle through. So that's kind of what Jacob is looking for. Can you see any adjustments that could be made for Tyson's side going into game 2?
Not realistically, no. He played everything out. I think one of the things he could look at doing potentially was playing a Sabo early to feel that trash. He did kind of run into the issue of he had just enough in trash, but he didn't really have good options to play off that second Gecko. He just kind of played the Lucci just to clear something, but didn't really get the full value of it. We never saw the full value play that you can do with this deck. So definitely looking at building that trash up early if he has the ability to. But generally, yeah, the matchup, it can kind of feel like it is like who sees more of what they need. If you both see everything, then it definitely becomes very much a grind game of who can utilize their resources more. But yeah, if Tyson just does more of the same, I think he'll be in for a good time. It'd be interesting to see how he adjusts if Jacob does play that 7-drop NL on the 7-Don turn. So I'm hoping to see that just so we can see some more of the skill expression come out through this game.
Definitely, and Jacob did one of the fastest snap keeps I have ever seen. He looked at his hand and he immediately just started putting his life out. He knew that he was keeping this hand, so he either has that 7-cost Enel in his hand or he just has a bunch of other really good cards for the matchup in hand. He could have a couple aces, a couple Yamatos, just like those late game cards that really help Jacob stabilize. So we're just pulling up the Enel here. Now, the reason this card is so powerful is that once per turn effect, which says if this card would leave your, I believe it says leave your battle area, leave your field, you may trash 1 card from your life. If you do, you don't have to make it leave the field. It's a very, very simple, very strong effect. However, just like a little bit of cannon fun, if Luffy's around, that effect does not work. Monkey's gum fruit powers kind of do cancel out Enel's electricity power, so there is a little bit of that fun little lore in the card, which is great, but it doesn't look like we're going to see many Luffys get played down. So this Enel, if it gets played next turn by Jacob, will stick for a very long time.
Yeah, 100%. I do think it is a smart move. You're swinging for 8 with this. The Lucha player is always going to take it. It does feel bad to try and get out of that swing. So I can see that Tyson is down to 3 life. Next turn, if Jacob does have it, he's going to be trying to defend from a 5 and a 7. Even though he has a large hand, it is a very rough position to be in. I think a Sabo blocker would be huge this turn, knowing that you're probably going to need to block an attack next turn.
But we just see the Brook come down. This Brook was one of the cards that came down last game and worked great wonders from Tyson. Removing that 5-cost Shirahoshi is honestly an amazing decision from Tyson. If you look at Jacob's discard pile, he has 3 Shirahoshis in there, which essentially means he knows that the chances that Jacob triggers another Shirahoshi are extremely low. There's only 1 left in his deck. So just removing the Shirahoshi from play means that Katakuri is going to get a lot less value if it's hitting Jacob's own cards, which is quite good. Now, Jacob has been able to get the Enel down, which is amazing for him. Pushing Tyson down to 2 life this early is crazy strong. And like we were saying before, no matter what Tyson does this turn, if Jacob wants that Enel to live, it is living. All he has to do is trash 1 life. In total, Tyson has 3 ways to pressure life. He has a 6k swing with Brook, he has the 5k swing with Leader, as well as him having the ability to attempt to remove the Enel, so Jacob does trash a card from life. So essentially just kind of forces Jacob to trash a card from hand because he'll get the life back straight away from the Enel Leader effect. But we just see Gecko come down, playing that Rebecca from drop, picking up a card, and just having a little bit more defense as Tyson looks a little bit startled, a little bit. I'm on 2 life. I'm being pressured a lot. This is kind of scary. So it's really up to Jacob to see what ways he wants to apply pressure. He's attached 1 Don to Leader to swing for 6. That's a pretty sure sign that we know what 8-drop is coming down this turn for Jacob.
Yeah, 100%. It is I think we've seen the perfect curve out from Jacob so far, finding in that at a 7 NL, swinging in, putting through all this pressure, playing this Katakuri. And now there's just two cards on field where Lucci is in a rough time just trying to remove these. Playing the biggest counter to that NL as a Lucci player is just having a big body to swing out. Swing E9 into it, either getting the 2 cards out of your opponent's hand, or them using using the ability once. It can only be used once per turn, so then you can remove it normally with your other KO effects. So even though the Gecko wasn't amazing value, you did get the Rebecca, which then allowed you to grab back a card. So you did get some value from it. It was still a good play and probably the correct play. Just you need to keep that board pressure up. If you have no board against the NL, you're in a really rough spot as they can kind of just keep on slowly building it up and then you just feel like you're just trying to come back into a game where it's just there's no space to be had.
Definitely, and it can be quite rough. And one of the big things that we're noticing difference between this game and last game is Tyson hasn't seen that NS lobby. So it means to remove this Katakuri instead of simply playing out one Tempest kick as well as using the stage. He has to play 2 Tempest kicks, which means he is very quickly running out of cost reduction, running out of gas. That's 2 Geckos that have been played, which means it is a lot harder for him to now go and remove cards in future turns.
Yeah, 100%. I could see in the future when we do have this NS lobbies ban, this is the kind of situation where it's like, Lucci is still a good deck, it's still doing all the things it needs to do, but it's actively losing the ability to do it over a long time, which is where the removal of lobby from the game is where it's kind of balancing out Lucci. You can't just say every turn I'm removing stuff, I don't need to use resources, I've got infinite resources on my board. It's saying, okay, we're going to play a fair game where we both now lose resources from our hand to do the things we want to do. So it will be interesting to see in the future how Lucci can adjust to having no lobby. But at the moment, he has been able to clear this Katakuri using those 2 Tempest kicks. It does draw a card, so it doesn't make you go negative at hand, but you do need to just draw into more of those, essentially. The NL is still on the board. It is always going to exist. It is just always a thought on the side. It's just a free attack into anything as well. It's not necessarily into life now. It's like, can I defend this Brook? I really want this Brook alive. It's like, well, I know I have to not just defend against leader, but probably Enel, and probably a Rush Ace is going to come down. It's like, is it really worth it at this point if one does come down to defend that? So we do see it. We see the life gain, the Rush, swinging into the board. Jacob recognizing that I don't need to push for damage right now. I'm just going to keep on poking on his board. Lucci having no lobby means I can actually win the attrition battle. So we'll see what Tyson can do to kind of swing it back with especially with no field. And looking at Tyson's drop, there's no cost reduction. 10 is actually a really hard number to do efficiently. You have to use either so many cards or not really be able to use Gecko. You have to use a few other combination of cards in hand to get that cost reduction. And so I can see a world where both this Ace and Enel live this turn, and then the tempo of the game swings heavily back into Jacob's favor.
Definitely. We do see that Spandine getting added to hand, which is one of the cards which it works really well with Rebecca and allows for that crazy 21 or whatever the large number combo that you can do with Gecko Moria is. Spandine is a CP card, which is why it can be grabbed off of Spandom. And it says when on play, you may place 3 cards with the type, including CP, from your trash to the bottom deck. If you do, play up to 1 character with CP in its traits, other than Spandine from your trash rested. So that allows you to play down the 4-cost Lucci. So when you play Rebecca, you can also play a Lucci, which is a pretty strong play.
Yes.
We just see Lucci swing into leader and Jacob triggering a Frankie, just getting another body on board, which is really good for him to be doing here. All the pressure you can be applying with each of these extra swings. We do see that Tyson decided, I'm going to cost reduce that Enel. Maybe that's a little bit of a bait because this Gecko is probably going to swing into the Enel now. So Jacob has to decide, well, do I counter out? Do I trash a life? Or do I just let it die? And a lot of the times, letting it die could be the right decision, because if you're just choosing to defend it, you know you're at least going to have to get rid of 3 cards from hand, potentially 4 if we see a Don attachment to Brook to try and reduce it as well.
It is interesting, though. You can... I do see the world where it's like, okay, I'm going to swing 7 into Brook, get another card from hand. I'm now going to cost reduce, remove it, use leader effect. You're now down to 0 life, which means this ace you're then using only gets you back up to 1, and I could potentially be in range for a kill turn the turn after. It is a very fine line using this NL ability. It is a bit scary sometimes if you use it too early. It can kind of backfire where you're like, all right, he's trying to kill my NL. I'm going to go to 0. I'm going to save it, and then the opponent just goes, huh, you're on 0 life. Well, time to go for the kill instead, I guess. And so it is very much a balancing act in that sense as well. So it will be interesting to see what Tyson comes up with. He has lots of cards in hand, lots of options. That is one of the benefits of Lucci. Is you kind of, when you have lots of cards in hand, you just always have many things you can do. For better or for worse, as you're playing the deck and trying to figure it all out. So we do see the 7 coming through. Then I do just expect a 1K out of Jacob's hand.
Indeed. Now Tyson has to decide what he wants to do with the rest of his hand. He doesn't have any high cost cards, so all of what we are going to see is a culmination of what Lucci can do without seeing its high boss monsters. And it's still a lot. You'll still be quite impressed with some of the play lines that can be run through this deck. Tyson simply counting out his Don, deciding what play lines are the best to make. I assume we will see something along the lines of a Rebecca come down, trying to get a little bit more cost reduction in the mix. Very potentially just adding a 2K back to hand with the potential to play that Spandine we picked up earlier, to play something along the lines of a 2K cost reducer that's in potentially in Tyson's drop, such as that Kaku that we see right under the brook he's thinking of grabbing. Looks like we will grab the brook. It is definitely one of the better cards and more flexible cards to have. We now see the Spandine come down. We're bottom decking 3 CP traded cards to play a 4 or less, which will be the Kaku, which reduces by 3 if I am not mistaken.
Yep, reduce it by 3. You have to bottom deck 2 more CP cards. So this is why the deck is very heavily CP with all these cards. You just need to be able to reduce those for a lot of the effects. It will then reduce the effect by 3. I think one of the biggest things you learn as playing Lucci is, like, when I first started playing the deck, I was like, oh, I have Spandine in hand. Oh, I'm just going to remove that. I only need to play that off Rebecca, off my Gecko. It's fine. And then as you start to get more used to the deck and start seeing more lines, like, okay, if I hold this in my hand, I actually don't need to play Gecko. I could just play the Spandine and then get access to these cards in my drop that I normally wouldn't have. So I think it is a very smart play. You're just removing anything you can. You know you're not getting that NL off the board. It's not worth it. You just need to remove anything and just try and keep some semblance of survivability on Tyson's side at the moment.
Definitely, and we will see this NL swing for 7 into Tyson's board. Attaching 2 Don, 2 leader for another 7K swing, which most likely means we're going to see another category drop down from Jacob here, ideally removing the Gecko Moria. Jacob's definitely going for more out of a defensive line now, swinging more into his into Tyson's board, removing the bodies and trying to go for the long game, because he knows by that last turn's play that Tyson has no access to remove an ace, which most likely means he has no access to remove this category he just played. Essentially just going, you know what, you've shown me that you're out of gas, so I'm going to slow the game down and I'm going to really milk everything I can. I'm going to take as long as I can to end this game, because every turn the game goes on, I'm getting more value and you're getting less value from the cards that you are playing. So Tyson may have to kind of switch modes and go, you know what, this is where I need to start just applying more pressure with each of my attacks. He does have 3 bodies on board, which could force a couple cards out of Jacob's hand. If he's able to play something along the lines of a Sabo to apply even more pressure and protect his board from a potential Yamato, he could be in quite a good spot if he turns on the gas.
Yeah, 100%. I think you always have to respect. three attacks means technically lethal in some instances. You just have to respect the attacks, and it's like, if I get out of the first one, whatever he does with these next 2, I'm kind of okay with. At the same time, you could just kind of take the first one and go, I want to clear your board, so I want your cards to be in rest mode. So maybe I do just look at letting you think that you have a chance, so that way I have something to swing into next turn. But we do see the Brook swinging in for 7 into the NL. Potentially looking at letting it go at a certain point. Probably not this turn. just because the Katakuri has had a Tempest Kick used on it, and it feels like that's probably going to be removed. So you want at least the 2 bodies to swing back into. And so because you saw there wasn't there was no lobby, you're actually pretty safe to use the leader effects the card effects so early on this NL, because they're just, it would take a lot more to be able to remove both the Katakuri and the 7-drop NL. You've kind of seen, like, okay, he's dedicated resources to this Katakuri. He's not going to just now switch to this NL and use all these extra resources. He kind of has to just commit now. So it's relatively safe just to say, okay, I could just use this, use my leader effect, gain that life back. I don't mind losing this card from hand. It was already dead anyway. I don't need those. I could just cycle a card effectively and just go on to the next turn. So we do see the 2 bodies still there from Jacob, and we'll have to see what kind of... I can guarantee you, Max, there will be another big body coming down. Don't know which one it is, but there will be one of them. And it looks like it's Yamato because there's a dot used.
Yeah, we've attached one. It's very telling what NL playlines are, but how big of a swing we will see from the leader. If we see a 8K swing, a 7K swing from our leader, we're going to see a Katakuri. If we see a 5K swing from our leader, we are going to see a ace.
Yamato.
And if we see the 6K swing, that's when we get this beautiful Yamato down. Yamato does say... KO up to one of your opponent's cards with a cost less than or equal to the total life between 2 players. At the point there was 5 life,
Yep,
I
5.
believe, and then we've just seen the 2 swings. So we could KO a 5 or less. I believe it was the Lucci that we decided to remove from play, and then we got to swing our other 2 bodies. And you also gain a life if your total life is at 1 or less, which Jacob's was. So he has very much turned the tides on this turn, removing that Brook, removing a life as well, gaining life. So we're now at 2 life each and looking good.
Yeah, I think it's looking very favored for Enel right now. It's gotten past the point where Lucci hasn't been able to remove cards every turn, has no board, and has no kill potential. He's in a very rough spot right now. You do see the Ender's Lobby in hand. At this point of the game, you don't want to see that. It's just too slow. You've used all of that's just salt in the wound. Just hitting the 1 less attack. The Brook, the -1, probably very relevant to just even. You're not going to KO with it, but at least minus something for 1. Yeah, I think Tyson is in a very rough spot here. He could potentially survive for 1 more turn, but knowing that, looking at your hand, you can even do the math and go, well, I know my last 2 life are dead. He has 4 big swings coming in. I could technically live if I go a Rebecca into a Sabo, but then am I just prolonging the inevitable? Like, what is... In One Piece, and I guess in most card games, you want to play to win, not just play to survive. If you can survive another turn, but it gets you further away from winning, it's probably not the correct play in a lot of instances. So we do see here just digging to probably just try and find something. Just finds nothing. It's very rough. Going 1 card down in hand just to kind of get no benefit is always a bad feeling when you're facing down this board, especially.
Indeed, Tyson is kind of grasping at straws, trying to figure out if there is a way for him to remove the board. He does have the Endless Lobby, which can reduce the Yamato by 2, bring it down to 6. I believe he has a Kaku in hand, which can then bring the Yamato down even further to a cost of 6, and then the Kaku brings it down to a cost of 3. But that's still not really enough to be able to remove the Yamato, as he needed to bring it down to a 2 cost to be able to use that Spandeem to get access to killing it with a Lucci from trash. But we just see the Sabo come down, kind of trying to fix Tyson's hand just that little bit. Discarding an Isho and a Brook, getting a dead card out, and just a card Tyson doesn't really think will be needed. But as you were saying, this looks like a bit of a prolonging the inevitable. Tyson with 5 cards in hand. Jacob's just going to swing big this turn. He's going to swing 5, just kind of saying, "Look, I have another big card in hand. I'm not risking it. I'm not going all in. I'm just going to get a couple cards out of your hand, and then I am going to gain another life." And Tyson's realizing there's not much point playing this on. I believe there was another ace in Jacob's hand, so there just wasn't much of a reason for Tyson to keep going.
Yep, no, technically lethal on board. realistically no lethal at all that could be had by Lucci. Just saying, look, I want as much time as possible for this game 3. This matchup can be very grindy, so I just want to give myself the biggest chance to win this game 3 and not have to go to these time rules, which can be very rough for, especially in this matchup. It gets to a weird state where you're playing for time rules is a very weird thing in card games, which you have to do sometimes. But I know you just don't want to have to if you don't have to. So you want as much time as possible just to play the game out. So I think scooping early, just not wasting time when you know the game's lost at the next turn anyway, is a very smart move by Tyson.
Definitely, and one of the big things, this is the first time Tyson gets to choose whether he goes first or second. And from the fact that Jacob chose to go first twice, we're pretty sure Tyson will choose to go first as well, which does throw his own curve off. He can't play Ennis Lobby turn 1. He doesn't really have any any 3-don plays, I guess, besides playing Ennis Lobby that one turn later. But you do get to play Sabo on 5, which is pretty lovely, as well as not seeing the Enel on curve. And that's pretty much all it comes down to. A lot of times in this matchup, it is just that Enel on curve, which applies a 7k pressure every turn. We just saw how valuable that was from Jacob's end. Just that 7 Enel, even when Tyson was able to remove the other bodies, that 7 Enel was enough pressure to keep being a problem. But Tyson does choose to go second. He's happy. He's happy with the matchup when he gets to go second. He likes his second curve. He wants to play that Gecko on curve. He wants to play that Isha on curve or that Sabo on curve, all of the big bodies. And Jacob obviously is happy with it because he chose to go first the last 2 games.
Yep.
So it's quite rare that you'll see both players kind of decide, you know what, I want you to go first and I want to go second, and the other player goes, you know what, I want that too. Normally, one of these players is like, okay, it's more favorable for one or the other, so I'm going to choose my slightly suboptimal line. But no, we will see the same lines being chosen. Borsellino coming down. It is an unkillable blocker, which does mean when Enel comes down, most of the time, Tyson will be able to block and use a 2k instead of getting rid of 2 1ks in hand, which will be quite impactful for a while. We do see the block come down from Borsellino, which protects another card out of Tyson's hand this turn, because Borsellino does have plus 1k during your opponent's turn.
Yep. The key part about Borsellino here is it also can't be KO'd during your opponent's turn via skills. So that Gadatsu coming down just did not get any value, which was huge. I think Tyson seeing that 4-drop on the 4-don turn has put him in a really good position. I think going second in this matchup is actually just still correct as Lucci. Your best you don't have a good turn 7-don play, so you don't really want to go first. And your best answer to them playing the NL is just having a big body out. So you want to go second anyway to play that big body on 8. So yeah, like you said, it is weird. You both get to go the positions you want, but it's also good and bad for both of you. It's very weird matchup. I have tried seeing both ways, but I think it's just you just let your opponent shoot. You're both happy. You just play a game of One Piece and both be happy, you know?
Definitely. And this Borsellino coming in valuable already. It's already protected essentially 3 cards from Tyson's hand, as we see the Borsellino block the 7k swing plus using a 2k from hand, which does mean Tyson's stable on 4 life, being quite happy. And the big thing is Jacob missed the 7-cost rush Enel. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why Tyson is happy to kind of take that gamble and go second, because he knows that Jacob only runs 3 Enels, so there isn't the highest chance that he actually finds one of those 7-cost Enels.
We do see the Isho coming down. One of the key cards in this matchup, I would say, is if you see this on curve, you drastically improve your win rate, especially if you snipe some really good cards here. So the more big bodies that gain life you snipe here is better. So we do see none of those, so that is good for Jacob, not losing any of those key cards from hand. But Isho just existing on the board, apart from the fact that you make your opponent discard 2 cards, is the fact that if you put a Don underneath Isho, you get to minus their whole ball by 3. So it's essentially saying, if this is not Katakuri this turn, I am just going to forever just get value out of... who needs Ennis Lobby? I have Ennis Lobby on crack on my board. Good luck dealing with this. Your only out is this Katakuri, and if you don't have it, you're good.
And we get another Ennis Lobby. Look, Tyson's just not allowed to draw Ennis Lobby, but he's allowed to trigger it from his life.
Just as good, if not better. So now, effectively, we do see the Katakuri coming. This is key from Jacob here. If he didn't have that, I would say that the matchup was probably 80% favored for Lucci at that point. It's just a huge swing turn. So that is good. It is now back to a pretty equal board state. We do see there's a lot of movability, a lot of options on both sides. So we have to see where Tyson goes from here. He does have some options in the drop, not a lot, which is one of the hard points with this matchup. If you don't see those Sabos or have the chance to play them, it is really hard to fill that drop with key cards you need in there for this turn where you want to play the Geckos, where you want to get some value from those. So I have to see what options. He doesn't have 10 in the drop yet. I have to swing the leader first. And he will get to that 10, so that is okay. It is always good to see that lobby in the drop after you have one on the field.
It is very nice, but one of the big things to note here is Tyson doesn't actually have one of those geckos in hand. So just like Jacob wasn't able to see the 7-cost Enel, Tyson isn't able to have a real big follow-up play from this. A show that was super impactful last turn. We're seeing Tyson just pay for this Lucci to remove the Katakuri. Still super nice to see. And honestly, we wouldn't have been able to see that play if Tyson didn't trigger the Ennis lobby last turn. We see the draw to trash 2 from Sabo. And Tyson's hand is just filled with 2Ks plus another Sabo at this point. He has no movability going into next turn. He really needs to be able to either get something off life, which I doubt Jacob's going to be swinging into his life. He's just going to be threatened by the board and go straight for board. But that Sabo does protect any of the KO effects from Jacob, such as those Yamatos coming down.
Yeah, 100%. The Sabo is definitely a key. Once you've kind of got a board as Lucci, you just want to be playing Sabo just to protect that board. So it is very key. We do see the Yamato just gain a life, still very valuable. There's no reason just to not. Doesn't want to swing leader into Lucci. You can swing for 6, but you know he didn't have a Gecko last turn, otherwise he would have played it. So I'm just going to force you to draw it, essentially. And we'll have to see what happens there. I don't think giving the life is correct. I think we're in this end game now where it's like, okay, we're in a war of attrition again, like we saw that last game where I am just going to eventually make you do nothing one turn, and then I will start giving you those cards. I want to give you all 4 at once. I don't want to drip feed them to you because it may give you options that you didn't currently have. So very smart play from Jacob there.
Definitely, we do see that Rebecca in hand, which gives Tyson a little bit more options of what he can do. He does mill a 8-cost Sabo, which is a little bit rough. There's a good chance that we're going to see something along the lines of Rebecca picking up the Brook and just slamming that Brook right back down to remove this Sabo, which honestly is kind of like a winning situation for Jacob because he doesn't have to worry about another big boss monster coming down. He also doesn't have to worry about his Yamato being cleared. However, the other option for Tyson is, look, I have 3 big bodies on board. I can just kind of turn them all sideways. But no, we are going for the Brook, removing that Sabo and passing, going, look, I want you to swing at my hand, Jacob. I have nothing. I am showing you I don't have anything good. But if you want to progress this game set, you're probably going to have to turn your card sideways at some point because I have 4 bodies going into your next turn.
Yep.
So
nah,
it'll be really interesting to see whether Jacob does have a play on his own. Something like a Katakuri isn't super effective because there's no real big bodies on Tyson's board. You don't really want to be bouncing that Shirahoshi to your life because it is essentially a free life as the blocker, so you don't get as much value from it. So you're really just looking for that Yamato or that Ace, which we haven't actually seen any other copies of Ace or Yamato in Jacob's hand, but he also hasn't filtered with them from the 5-cost Shirahoshi, so there's a good chance that Jacob just doesn't have these cards.
Yeah, 100%. He's thinking about the Don usage here. It is a very rough spot. You can push through some damage, but Lucci having up 2 blockers is a very... You just know that he's not going to be taking the ones he doesn't want to at this point. You're looking at a board where nothing can be removed. Actually, you can remove the card, sorry, with the Yamato ability, but it seems like he doesn't have the Yamato, unfortunately. And so you can just imagine there's going to be a lot of attacks coming through next turn. Tyson saying, I don't have a big boy, so I'm just going wide, and we're just going to play what we can.
We see a rush and now come down, swinging 8 into Tyson's lead. This is kind of Jacob going, you know what? I know you don't have a Gecko, but I've got nothing either, man. Like, this is as close as this game can be. And we do see Tyson rip that Gecko off of his life. So he is in quite a commanding position. And another Gecko from the top deck. Tyson has really just gained back control in this game. However, he has used a lot of those Tempest kicks. His hand does not have much cost reduction whatsoever that he can play alongside these Gecko Warriors. His only chance is something such as playing a Spandam to just dig his deck for another Tempest kick, and using that without those, though, the best he can realistically do is reduce by 3 that's on the board, and potentially if there is a Helmeppo in bin that can remove it by another one. We do see the Spandam come down and
Ooh,
completely
another
miss
whiff.
because Spandam cannot grab another copy of Spandam. So the cards that we are looking for if we're Tyson is probably something along the lines of a Helmeppo in the bin, but that only lets us reduce cost by 6, and the only thing that Gecko can realistically KO is 2 or less with the Lucci. So we will be seeing most likely just a attempt to kind of remove this Enel for no other reason than, look, it's a card out of hand that we get from Jacob. With all these small swings I'm doing into his leader this turn with my Brooks, with my Lucci's, potentially with my Sabo as well, I'm going to be getting a lot of cards out of his hand, and we're potentially going into something like a 2-turn game. You're not killing me this turn, I'm not killing you this turn, but I could kill you next turn.
Yeah, 100%. I do think that the Shirahoshi blocker just on the field for Jacob is huge. It's essentially just another life. Black is like in the literal and figurative sense, because if you remove it, you gain a life and you can block and stop a hit in. So in this matchup, just the more of those you just have on the field is just the better for Jacob going forward. We do see the Shirahoshi triggered, draw 3, discard 2, just being able to fix up that hand. It would be interesting to see what kind of things he discards. Whether he discards those big bodies he doesn't think he needs, whether he's like, okay, I need the counter, whether he thinks he can just survive the long game. It is a very interesting board state. So we do see the Kingdom Come. I didn't quite see the other card that was discarded. And then we see the interesting, Frankie discarded off the leader ability for, which is a 2K. So his hand is either full of 2Ks and it probably has a mixture of 2Ks plus those big bodies, and just goes, I don't need this extra 2K, I'll just give it to you. Play a little bit of mind games. What does that mean when I discard a 2K, which is also a huge thing. It's like, when you see your opponent discard a 2K or a dead card, you're like, what does that mean for the rest of your hand? It's a question I often ponder and go, I have no idea. I'm going to just swing and pray, to be honest. I don't put too much thought into it, but it's definitely, at the highest level, there is definitely a lot of things that can be done there.
Definitely. We see the Rebecca and the Helmeppo come down. Enel is now a 1-cost. Rebecca will pick something up. Now, we kind of see 2 options here from Tyson. You either pick up the Brook and use that, or you can pick up the Spandine and play the Spandine, which will then play the Lucci, which is essentially just a little bit smarter of a play because you just get a slightly bigger body. Spandine obviously has to bottom deck those 3 CP cards to be able to play out the Lucci. Getting rid of 2 events and a Spandam is probably the most normal line, or just like all events, because realistically events are the cards you kind of want to see at the bottom deck if you ever cycle through, because they are the ones that you can't use from your trash. All the other ones you have some ability to use from your trash. Now Jacob is just deciding whether he wants to trash the life to keep this Enel alive, or whether he is happy to let this Enel die. And it looks like the Enel dying is what will happen. Jacob's already used his leader effect this turn, so he doesn't really want to go down to 0 life. Tyson still has a decision point now that the Enel is gone. Do I actually just put a little bit more pressure in? Do I turn my Sabo sideways? Do I turn my Borsalino sideways? Because it's a lot harder for Tyson to lose this turn with that Rebecca blocker on board, as well as that being on 2 life. And realistically, Jacob only has 3 swings going to next turn, with one of them being a rush, either Enel or Ace.
Yeah, 100%. I think because you already have the target of the Lucci rested, I actually don't think there's any issue swinging with the Sabo and saying, well, you're going to clear 1 anyway. You're realistically going to clear the Lucci. If you clear the Sabo, sure, then my Lucci lives. It's essentially the same thing. Plus, you get that extra card out of hand. Because you have the Rebecca blocker, plus the swing into here, it should be an easy enough counter out. So, yeah, we do see this. And we saw the 8, so we know the Shirahoshi's probably going back in life. Oh, we just see the Gecko. Interesting. The Gecko going back into Lucci's life. Just removing that attacker, saying, my hand's good enough. I'm just building this big board. Let's hope you don't have another one, and then I will do the same thing I did last game, where I take you down to 0 in 1 turn, and then go, the turn after, I will kill you.
Definitely, and one of the hard things, if you're Jacob here, is that full combo from Lucci does kill a 8-cost, because what it does is with the NS Lobby plus the leader, that reduces it by 3, and then Helmeppo reduces it by another 3. So you are able to remove, essentially, you just get to remove the Katakuri, which is exactly what Jacob doesn't want and exactly what Tyson wants to happen, as well as being able to apply a bunch of pressure. We get a swing 7, we get a potentially swing 7 with this Sabo as well, because now Tyson's on 3 life. He's definitely not dying to Jacob's next turn. Jacob thinking if he wants to trigger, he will trigger. It is a zero-cost event. It looks like Jacob's hand is essentially just 2 cards. That zero-cost event was released in OP06, which says, trigger, if you are on 0 life, discard a card from hand and gain a life.
Yeah, correct. So it is the same as the Animal Leader ability. It does say gain a life first, then discard a card. So if you cannot meet you automatically gain the life, and if you have no cards in hand, that's cool. I just do nothing. We're chill with that. That is one of the fringe benefits of these yellow cards. Is a lot of the time you will just gain. It is unconditional gain life, and then if you can do the I guess cost, you do that afterwards. So it is a very strong effect. So just thinking about what am I doing here. Thinking about the trigger, which we'll hopefully see if he does trigger it. Otherwise, we'll just go to hand. Triggering the Luffy. So Luffy lets you KO 4 costs or less on trigger. So it is actually an interesting choice. So the Lucci or the Borsalino are both targets. So the Borsalino only says on your opponent's turn, it can't be KO'd by fire effects. So if you remember back from the earlier sets, when you had that jet pistol triggering off life, KOing your Borsalinos was the worst feeling. So that is this in yellow form. Just saying that I need you to have 1 less attack that's unremovable. Choosing to say, okay, something that can't be carried is worth more removing than a 6k swing. So we do see the full combo, as we like to call it, coming out. The Rebecca into Helmeppo, Rebecca grabbing the Spandine back from the drop, playing it from its own effect. It will then return 3 CP cards to the bottom. Playing that Lucci, most likely over the Spandine or the Helmeppo, whichever one is, I guess, needed back in the drop. Normally over the 2k, just because 3k is slightly bigger, maybe you can get an attack through. And then using Lucci's effect to return 3 of any card to then KO the Katakuri.
Definitely. And one of the really crazy and slightly annoying things about this whole combo is simply that because every card kind of comes out one after the other, besides the 2 that Gecko initially play, you can replace the Lucci with the Spandine or with the with the Spandine or with the Helmeppo or something like that, or one of this slightly later triggers, and then the Lucci can go to the bin, and then you can replay that same Lucci. Looking through Tyson's discard pile, he did not have another Lucci there, so he needed that board to be as full as it was to be able to replace the Lucci to actually get this full combo going down. Now, Jacob is at no life, so he definitely has to gain a life this turn. He's attaching 2 Don to his leader, swinging 7 into Sabo. That it will be a 2k, and we're most likely going to see another one of these Kata secret rares come down, probably putting the Shirahoshi into life. Kata is a card we've seen come down a bunch in this game, and it is quite versatile. It's the 3rd one that's been played this game. There's been an Isho put into life, there's been a Gecko put into life, and then there's now been a Shirahoshi put into life. One of the good things, if you're Tyson, though, is you know that one of the 2 triggers that Jacob is going to get is not actually going to slow your turn down at all. It's going to help Jacob kind of filter his hand, get a little bit more of a defensive hand, but you know it's not you're the one who should disappear. You know it's not Beige. You know it's not one of those KOs such as Rocket Luffy or Nami or Kingdom Come. So you're in quite a good spot when you get to go for all these swings. Jacob's sitting with 1 card in hand. He's just hoping. He's like, you're the one who should disappear. You're the one who should disappear.
He needs something.
And it's a Shirahoshi, so he does have to remove a Shirahoshi. Draw 3 cards, gets to trash 2 of them. And that is the concession from Jacob. He knows he has no way to get through the Gecko swing, let alone all 10 Don or 8 Don still left to be swung. But that was a masterclass in this matchup. Tyson getting the 2 NS Lobby triggers in game 1 and the 3 was crazy to watch. But unfortunately for Jacob, he just didn't see any 10 cost aces, and he only saw that 1 9 cost Yamato in game 3. So he was a bit unfortunate with his draws, but that's just kind of what it is in a TCG. You have to do the best you can with the cards you see, and Tyson was the one able to come on top of this game, being able to get that Gecko off life and then another Gecko off draw, which really just enabled Tyson to go, you know what, I was in a bit of a slow spot because I didn't have all these cards, but now I've got them now, I can apply the pressure and I can go for game.
Yeah, 100%. It was a very, very smart play by Tyson to recognize that he can just keep on building this board, keep on removing. And yeah, it's just unfortunate, just Enel not having those big pieces they need. It is very much there is a lot of skill expression in this matchup. It's just you both need to draw the cards, unfortunately. It's one of those things where because you're both going first and second as you want to, it kind of just comes down to there is no, okay, I can take you off your curve to do what I want to do, and then we can like play around this like weird half game where I'm not doing what I want to do, but I know you're not. Whereas it's like, okay, we're both doing what we want to do. So it's kind of just, it gets to a point where it's like, okay, well, did I hit enough of what I need to hit? Did you hit enough of what you need to hit? And it's like, okay, we're just going to play this game and then just completely grind it out. I definitely have had games where you both high roll, you both hit everything, and I've almost decked out. And it's just like both decks can go the distance. It's just who can sequence correctly, who can get the most value out of those cards. So like even that extra, just keeping that one extra card in hand when you normally would just remove it, it can just be the key difference in this matchup.
Definitely, and that was a super close game, it going to game 3. We will have a short break before we come back for round 4 very shortly.
stop loving them. You're not interesting to talk to anymore. Goodbye. But that real love, that love that sometimes is difficult, difficult to have, that's that love, that love,
Hello and welcome to our top 4 round of the Sydney Regionals here at Bankstown Sports Club. We do have a RP Law mirror match for you guys. This is our first mirror match we have on stream for RP Law, and will probably be one of the last ones as it gets banned very, very shortly. And we get to see exactly why it is one of the strongest decks in this mirror. The mirror is definitely one of the most technically skilled matchups for RP Law. So Kevin, what are some of the major key points we're going to be looking out for?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the most interesting matchups as an RP Law player. You kind of want to play this game, kind of like when you're versing the Raiju deck. You kind of want to turn off your opponent's ability to draw cards. So the main key piece of that is that Raiju card, the 4-drop, which draws 2 if you have 5 less cards in hand, unless it equals to Don than your opponent. So you kind of want to be able to do that yourself while turn off your opponent. Hand size is the key difference in this, and just drawing into the correct pieces. So because you kind of can both go real fast, real slow, it's kind of a game of figuring out what your opponent is attempting to do while trying to just find your pieces. So like sometimes you'll just lose because you just don't see any kid killers or any rush cards, or you'll just not draw into the correct pieces. So the hand size management, the Don management in terms of just being low enough from your opponent so you can still swing effectively while trying to turn off their ability to draw, while also just keeping their board clear. It's very much like a back and forth game where there's so many different factors to take in consideration. It's one of those things that I can never get my head around personally. So it's one of the reasons I stopped playing the deck. It was just too good. It's too hard for me.
Well, both of these players have done an extremely good job to make it to top 4. So we will get to see how exactly these top players do manage the matchup. Now, I'm not sure who is going first. But both players are setting up. Now, it looks like they both mulliganed and both keeping their second hands. Looks like Han is going first, showing us that beautiful Sanji Don. Now, there's virtually no turn 1 plays you can make. It is interesting to see. He does have that raise max in hand, but decided, no, we're not playing this turn 1. We're going to save it for a bit later. And similar with Hubert, I'm not playing my turn 1 raise max. We get the 5k swing into the leader. Hubert will take this one quite easily. See the Shariah. Now, one of the important things to note is the power of each of these cards. Now, Shariah is a 4k, which means it is as hard to remove Shariah from the board as it is to remove something along the lines of Queen or Kid. So Shariah is going to be able to stick around for a very, very long time.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of the key pieces is just you kind of want to play these cards which force an answer from your opponent. So you kind of go, well, if this one gets removed, maybe the next one doesn't get removed, which is kind of huge in this matchup. So it's about choosing which ones are more important to remove and which ones are just, okay, this one's going to exist. I can eventually swing into this. This Captain Kid is definitely one of those key cards that needs to be removed. The longer that lives on your side of the board, just the less you're going to be, the bigger your swings can be when you go into late into this game.
Definitely, and there is a good chance that Han is just going to use that Shariah with the ability when blocking. You can, it gains power equal to your opponent's leader's power, which means there is no way for Hubert to get a effective swing off this turn to get hand down to 3 to activate. Hand down to 2 to activate the Kid Killer effect. We do see Miss All Sunday come down, which does draw a card and ramp a Don, following by a raise max to bottom deck. Hands Kid alongside the leader effect. Hubert now just deciding what card he wants to play off of the leader effect. He will play a Iron, which does ramp a Don.
Yeah, so we do see a pretty ideal turn coming out from there, Hubert. Removing all the board, ramping twice, getting that draw. Miss All Sunday being one of those flex spot cards that was introduced kind of recently as a replacement. So you kind of really only had Kid as the 5-drop previously. And then we started to introduce these Miss All Sundays, getting that ramp plus the draw, which the deck so desperately needs, along with the Queen, which is also another draw, which we do see from Han here. Play the draw 2, -1 Don just to discard 1, fixing up your hand a little bit. We do see the Iron discarded. That card is coming in and out of favor in these RP Law decks. Some people like to run it. Some people have gone back to a more odd-based strategy where you don't run as many even cards. You just run the good ones and say, it's fine, I'm just going to swing for bigger numbers sometimes and then just play these better cards and just have a higher card quality in the deck. So we do see the Raise Max come out, or was that the Gordon?
I think it was Raise Max
that
came
Raise-
down,
Raise
yeah,
Max?
minus the Kid Killer, which now is going to get bottom decked by the lead effect. Now, one of the important things to watch out for is a lot of the times when you're playing against this, you want to be on high don so you can apply pressure to your opponent, but also you want to stay on low don so you can make sure that your opponent can't play their Raju to build up their own hand. Hubert being the first player to go down to 2 life, meaning hand does have access to that Kid Killer, but we will see what happens here. I think both players are kind of hesitant to turn their cards sideways first, as it means their opponent can swing into board. As we've seen in a bunch of previous matchups that we've covered over the last 2 days, swinging into board is a very important part of this game for you to be able to establish momentum against your opponent. We will see Hubert pay 3 for his own copy of Shariah, following by 1 for a Gordon. The Gordon will minus the Queen. And then I'm assuming we will see something along the lines of a leader effect at some point before Hubert swings. And you see the Queen's kind of just been moved down to the side. Just going, I know it's going soon. You haven't got rid of it yet, but I know it's about to go. We will see that Don -3 come down now to bot deck the Queen. Hubert thinking once he wants to play off it, his only options are really Kid Killer, Bond Clay, or the Blocker Law. Blocker Law doesn't get much value as hand size is very small at being at 3. We'll see the leader swing into the Sachi Penguin. We'll see a 6k swing with Iron. Important to note that we saw the leader swing for 5. This means the Shariah doesn't get as much value as it would normally when you attach Don to the leader.
100%. So this is kind of the back and forth nature of this RP Law matchup, where it kind of feels like, okay, I've cleared some of your board, I'm going to swing my extra cards into your leader. Realistically, RP Law is you can only use leader effect of 1 card a turn. So outside of that, your only way to remove cards is by swinging. And so it kind of becomes this seesaw of, okay, who's going to slowly build up the bigger deck? Who has cards they want to play? Who has cards that can actually impact the board state? So we see this swing of hand size as well. So last turn, Han had 3 cards in hand, had the board. Now Hubert has 3 cards in hand, but has the board. And so it's very much a back and forth. And eventually we'll just reach a tipping point where, okay, one of them realizes they're not it, that the seesaw's about to tip over. I have to just go for it. I can no longer play this back and forth game. I just have to go, well, I have 2 Kid Killers in my hand. They have 3 cards in their hand. Hopefully it's good enough.
Definitely, and we see the Iron swinging into one of Hubert's bodies, and then we see the Law swing into another one. Hubert only with 2 cards left in hand, happy to let this one die. I don't know if happy is the right word, but is forced to let this one die. We'll then see a 6k swing with Shariah. Han is quite confident swinging with that blocker going, I don't think you can actually capitalize on me only being able to play this one other blocker Shariah that I have in hand, because I am removing one of your bodies, which will be your Blocker Law, using my leader effect. And then from the leader effect, I will be playing another body, which could be a blocker, could be a Kid Killer. We do have 3 Don left open, so it's most likely going to be the Kid Killer being a 7k swing into lead, kind of telling Hubert, you know what, you have 1 more turn to kill me because my board is pretty big this turn. We'll see the Shariah come down and essentially tell Hubert, look, if you got me, you got me. I've got 3 cards in hand. I could have 3 2k counters, which means I can get out of a 9k swing, or I could have 3 dead cards. It's RP Law, so it could be either one of these.
Way, yeah,
the hand
sure.
size, the hand cards are always, sometimes the hand has a bunch of 2ks because that's kind of what it is. Sometimes your hand is fake, and you kind of just have to sit up, be confident, and kind of bluff your way through it. A little bit like a poker match.
Yeah, 100%. So it seems like we might be at the point where Hubert is about to fall off the seesaw, and so he's like, okay, if I have the cards, maybe it is just time to go for game. And Hana's just hoping that he kind of doesn't. So I think the perfect swings here for Hubert would be 5 lead, 7 with Shariah, 7 with the Kid Killer, and then 9, potentially 9 with the last Kid Killer, or even just doing 7, 7, 7, spreading it out a bit more evenly. Playing, so you're getting a couple. If he has 2 Kid Killers in hand, that could be a line he takes. Just getting these swings in and just seeing what would happen. So it is an interesting spot. So does block the first one. Just doesn't want to risk the the free value. So we do see this, and we see, okay, leader effect coming down.
And we see the Kid Killer. Han already knows what's going on. It's 9k. He can only get up to 8k in total, and that is just the game. It is quite crazy to see how these RP lore players kind of go into each other. They just kind of go, look, I have to play this game assuming he doesn't have Kid Killer in hand because I don't have another out. If he does have Kid Killer, my hand was a 1k plus 2 dead cards, which is a very RP lore style hand. But that was a very quick game 1. It'll be interesting to see what happens here in game 2, because one of the big things that didn't happen that game is we saw no Reiju. Reiju is definitely one of those cards that can make both of these players have healthy hands and extend the life of the game. But because neither players had these Reijus, it definitely went something along the lines of swing, block, bottom deck something, swing, counter, and just the boards went, the hands went, everything kind of went, and both players ran out of resource. It looks like the players want to split up their cards here, going for a quick pile shuffle before starting their next round.
Plenty of time left. I don't imagine this will go to, even if we played 5 games, I imagine they could probably fit 5 games in with how fast they're playing.
Yes, indeed. That was 10 minutes for a game 1. And sometimes, kind of just what it is with RP lore, these players they fully understand the matchup. They know that it's all about board control. It's a kind of about, I want to make sure I have more cards in hand than my opponent, because most of the time when they're swinging, because they want to develop a board, they want to play something, and they want to use leader effects. They don't have many dons, so most of the swings are going to be for 5 or 6k. So if I have more cards in hand, that means that I can keep my board alive significantly better than my opponent can. So we're looking for these Reijus, we're looking for these Queens, we're looking for these cards that enable us to play out a board without losing such a hand size. But it's also important to see our raise maxes, to see our Gordons, because we need to be able to reduce the power of our opponent's cards to be able to bottom deck them.
Yeah, 100%. It is finding that balance of, I need to find a mixture of everything is perfect, is honestly what you want. You don't want too much of one thing. Otherwise, you're kind of forced into a playstyle where it's not really ideal. If you have too many rushes, you're like, okay, I'm playing a more aggro-based game this time. If I have too many reducers, I'm going for a more ball control-based game. But each of those has their own benefits and disadvantages. So if your opponent recognizes you're playing a certain way because of the base of that hand, they have the ability to play around that and potentially punish you for having to do this kind of playstyle. Saying that, RP Lore doesn't draw as much. It doesn't, like, because of these turns and games are so quick, you don't have the options to see a lot of these cards in your deck. You kind of just have to play with what you've got. And the best players will love that flexibility of going, I've got these 7, 8 cards for these first few turns. What is my correct line? What is my optimal line? What am I doing? What is my opponent doing? And that's where you see a lot of this skill expression come out in this matchup, is understanding that these are my outs, this is what I've got. Not worrying, it's like, oh, I didn't draw into it, that's okay. This is what I can do, this is what I'm going to do. And as you saw Han, he's like, well, this is my best line. If he has Kid Killer, it is what it is, because I can't live. I need to do this to win the game. He probably had another line where he could go, okay, I'm not going to die. But then Hubert can just build up this massive board presence and build up this even larger tempo swing, where he's not playing to win, he's just playing to not lose. And so I think that is a very unfortunate for Han that he had it, but he knew what he had to do and went for it at least.
Definitely. And one interesting thing, similar to what we saw with Jacob versus Tyson, even though Hubert got to choose what they want to go game 1, choosing to go second, Han also chooses, I want to go first. Right? Both these players are happy with what they were going, and on both sides, it makes sense. On Hubert's side, I can play an Iron on 4 and get that early ramp to be quite far ahead in Don, whereas Han's looking at it like, I can play Kid on 5, and if I Kid into Sachi Penguin, I'm in a really, really good spot. So it'll be interesting to see how these two go. We do see the Iron into the Sachi Penguin, which is definitely one of the best plays. Getting 2 bodies down early is super impactful in this mirror match.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think RP Law is one of those decks where you can build it in a way where you do want to go first or second, and it is kind of hard sitting down across from it. It's like, I don't exactly know what you were trying to do. Like, you could do a variety of things, and so you kind of just, like, if you win the dice roll, you kind of just do, okay, I'm just going to do what's best for me and hope it's what's correct in this matchup. But we do see the Kid coming down, minus the effect of bottom decking nothing, just to get this Don back, and so we can start building up a board presence. Playing out that Gordon with the extra Don, it's a really smart play from Han here. Essentially saying, you can't even remove one thing in turn with your leader ability. You have to choose between securing, removing this Gordon and saying, okay, you have to have another Gordon, or removing that kid. So essentially, it's almost like a blocker for the leader ability in a way. It's like you have to choose one of these, and the other one is living. And either way, I'm getting an advantage from this. So I think that's a really smart play from Hahn. We'll have to see what Hubert chooses and whether he even has like the Raise Max or Gordon to remove that kid.
Definitely, it is quite a strong play. It will be quite surprising if we see the Gordon get bottom deck, because at the end of the day, if that Gordon gets a bottom deck, we know Han has another one in hand, because otherwise there isn't much reason for him to play it. We do see Han going down to 2 life, and Hubert just kind of deciding what he wants to remove. We hear Hubert asking the hand size because we know he runs that cheeky RP, cheeky blocker law. He wants to kind of hit the hand a little bit going forward. But one of the interesting things about the RP law matchup is both these decks run a lot of blockers, so it does take a while for these players to be able to kind of get each other through. Now, important thing to know is Han is not blocking with this kid. The reason he doesn't exactly want to block with the kid is he doesn't want it to be a target for a power reduction into just being swung into, because then Hubert has the chance of removing both the Gordon and the kid, which is definitely a optimal line.
Yeah, 100%. It is one of those things where you don't have to just reduce for your leader's effect. If the card is in rest mode, you can just reduce its power and swing into it, and then save your leader effect for something else. That's why we see cards like the 7-cost A-Spin running in some lists, where you get to -2 things by 3k, and it just allows you to go, okay, I'm going to swing into one and then just remove the other. And so you're looking at 2 options. You have to evaluate as the player's like, okay, what do I really want to keep? What do I really not mind? So the flexibility, like power reduction is huge. And I think finding those ways where it's not just always going, this is how my deck works with the leader, I need the cost reduction leader, but going, no, the cost reduction, the power reduction can actually work with swinging and like open up more avenues. I think that's where a lot of players will find like the fun from the deck is finding those different ways to play it as well.
Definitely one of the great plays that we just saw Hubert do was just plain old swinging for 5. Most of the times people would shotgun block that with the kid, but it really put it to Han's mind, like, look, I don't know what is best for me to do this turn. I don't know whether I can block. He could have a kid kill and then swing into it, in which case I'm in a really bad spot because I'm on 2 life, so that's a big kid killer. But we do see just the Reiju coming down, which is the card we have talked so much about and why it's so important in this matchup and why Hubert gets such a big advantage from playing it. So Reiju does say it's got 2 conditions on it. If you have less Don than your opponent, as well as you having less than 5 cards in hand, you get to draw 2 cards when you play it. So Hubert doing the ramp with Iron, but before doing that, he was double checking how much Don his opponent Han had. I believe it was 4 at the time. So he knew if I ramp with Iron, I will go up to 6, like a -3. I can go down just enough to be able to draw up with Reiju.
Yeah, 100%. So looking at the board for Hubert here, it is very wide. It's a lot of 5Ks, but it's a lot of dead cards as well, which is good. You want to get those irons out of your hand. Use the rest for defense.
Definitely.
So
we see the 6k swing into Kid, and I believe we see another Reiju in Han's hand. We'll see the 5-cost Kid come down into the Don minus effect of just playing your own Reiju. Han here is at 3 Don, so the Reiju, if he decides to play it, will draw him back up because he is at less Don than his opponent. Both these players making sure they play meticulously well to be at less Don when they need to, but it looks like Han just wants to go for the Bon Clay to gain 3 Don back in active mode. That is such a big power play.
yeah, 100%. So if these cards stick around the board, it's just going to provide so much like free swinging power. Essentially, it's like I can still use my lead ability and essentially not lose any Don just from these cards. Like these 2 cards on board, I only lose 1. Then if I play another card, it's huge. But I can see a lot of damage coming through for Hubert. Just keep on pushing, just asking for cards in hand. I think Han is in a very rough spot. He's going to be able to remove that, bottom deck that, use the swing twice for 6 first, then remove it.
See if he has a Kid Killer in hand, which he does. It will be a 7k swing in to lead into an 8k, and
there it
Hubert
is.
takes the win. He does not have hand does not have anywhere near enough counter to get through the game. Hubert being in a masterclass, he went 8-0 in Swiss. He won his top 16 round. He won his top 8 round, and he has now won his top 4 round 2-0, advancing to the finals, where he will go against the winner of BY Luffy versus Lucci. So congratulations to Hubert, who has done amazingly over this weekend.
Yeah, big congratulations. It'll be interesting to see whether he versus the Lucha or BY Luffy. If I had to guess, it would probably be the BY Luffy. And then, yeah, RP Lauren to BY Luffy is a very interesting matchup. I will say, from your experience, what do you think is who's favored?
Look, I love playing BY. So I love just the thing BY is always favored. You know, it always has so much potential into every matchup, just because being a 9k base leader into anything is super valuable. Not many decks can consistently swing into that number, whether it is Lucci that the BY is playing against now, only being able to hit that really with its Geckos and its Sabos and the Ishos, but they take a whole turn to develop, or whether that's RP Law, who can realistically only hit it with something like a Shariah or their Bond Clay, or they have to make a big Don investment. So there's a lot less options for these two decks to swing into it. So it'll be great to see if BY makes it through. It'll also be great to see if Lucci makes it through, because I don't think we've had a Lucci versus RP Law on stream, and that is definitely one of the most intricate matchups in this game. But that is the end of our semi-finals, and we will catch you all in the grand finals very shortly.
Still working on our beats. Still working on our.
have designed this speaker to amplify my thoughts so people will quit asking me for sandwiches. That should work, right?
I don't know what you're talking about, Space Ghost.
Go ahead,
My
Moltar.
show was... Yeah, we poked you with sticks till you fell down. Remember?
You sure I didn't harness the power of the sun?
No, it's definitely sticks. Beaten with sticks.
All right, go get 'em. How's it going, man? Ow! No! Ow! Ow! Not there! Ow! Ow!
Are you still here?
Welcome to the program.
I'm sorry. I thought the show was over.
It started?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the grand final of the Sydney One Piece Regionals, hosted by Let's Play Games. For the last time, I'm Max, and this is Kevin helping me commentate. We are watching BY Luffy and RP Law duke it out for the title of champion, king of the pirates, whatever they want to call themselves. They get the bragging rights if they win this game. We have seen this matchup play out once on stream before, which RP Law getting the win. However, it is a very 50-50 matchup, so it'll be great to see these two top players duke it out for the win.
Yeah, 100%. It'll be very interesting to see whether there's any differences between strategies, especially going from a best of one to a best of three, whether there's any mind games being played, anything that might be slightly different. What are you expecting to see from the BY Luffy player here, Max?
So BY Luffy definitely wants to try find is Ivankov if it's running it. Ivankov is a card which really helps in the matchup, lets you stabilize on a 7k leader while still having 1 or 2 life. Just helps you get to that kind of awakened condition, as I like to call it a little bit earlier, being that 9k base leader and kind of locking RP Law out of the game. However, RP Law wants to look for its kind of counter pieces to the deck. It wants to look for its Sorayas. It wants to look for those blocker laws, which we know Hubert runs multiple of, and it wants to look for those Bond Clays. So it is going to be quite a close game. One thing to note is Hubert has gone undefeated up until this point. He was undefeated in the Swiss, and he's run all his rounds up until now. So he still gets to choose whether he wants to go first or second. Looks like Hubert has kept his hand, and we will get very close to starting. Looks like Gavin will be going first by Hubert's choice. But as a BY player, I don't mind going first into RP Law. It means I kind of get a couple more options throughout the game, but it'll be keen to see how this one goes.
Yeah, understandable. Doing the searcher here, just looking for any pieces you may be missing, just starting to fill that out. It'll be interesting to see. Hubert probably just going to pass here. I can't imagine, even if he has a Raymax kind of thing, I think we do see that blocker law on hand, which would be huge. I can imagine that just being played next turn, just done minusing, and then just passing.
Yeah, Gavin's going to be looking at 6 cards in hand. And one thing we did notice from Gavin when played against RP Law earlier yesterday on stream is when Hubert's about to swing 5 with his leader, Gavin likes to block these 5k swings. He likes to stay on high life against RP Law. Just kind of gives him a bit more potential. We do see the iron come down, ramping that 1 Don, and Hubert now has to decide, am I going to starve and I'm going to make it Gavin use up his own resources to awaken, or will I attack? And it looks like Hubert is going for the starve gameplay. He didn't see a super aggressive hand, so it's definitely a great decision. 5k leader swing from Luffy into the 5-cost Luffy. He will trash top card of his life, being another 5-cost Luffy to draw a card. That Luffy is now 8k power, which means for Hubert to remove it, he has to see 2 Gordon/Raise Maxes, or one of them plus an Otama.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very powerful pivot point of, can he get through this? And will it stick? If it sticks, I feel like BY Luffy is in a good position to just keep on doing whatever they think is their correct game plan, not necessarily having to find an alternate avenue. But we do see the 7 cards in Gavin's hand from all the drawing he did last turn through this Luffy effect as well. He will now be losing 2 of those. I really feel him there, not Geckos. Gecko is probably the worst scenario hit. And we do see, those are huge
Gecko
hits.
And the finger pistol, getting rid of some of the cards that Gavin can use to remove, which is quite a pain for Gavin. What a great play by Hubert. And he just has an eye for those big cards. You know, he's great at removing those Yamatos, those Aces, and now great at removing those Geckos. And then we see the pass. Doesn't want to swing. He wants Gavin to have to use his own resources to take a life, which we'll see again with the Luffy trashing the Hiyori from life, drawing a card, going back up to 7 cards in hand. So Gavin really wants to play at least something. He will use the Rocket Luffy to draw another card to remove that Bond Clay, because that Bond Clay couldn't swing for 8, which can be really painful. But I believe Gavin still has 7 cards left in hand, which does mean he can use another blocker law if he does have one. Swing 7 into Hubert's life. He is willing to take this. I think Hubert's just kind of like, look, if I see another block of law, I'm chilling. This guy's got like no cards in hand. If I see this second block of law, so I'm happy to kind of like take that little bit of a gamble and push for it. We do see that Kid Killer in hand. This could be a good turn for Hubert to start taking because he has so many Don. He has 9 Don. That's a lot of big swings. And one of the most important things in the BY matchup is you just want to make sure you're removing their entire hand as quickly as possible. So seeing some cheeky like 6k swings, the reason we like to swing 6 into BY is the way that BY takes their own life most of the time is through the use of 2Ks. So you want to get rid of those 2Ks out of hand rather than letting them keep those 2Ks in hand to use to awaken, because they want their 5 costs in bin. They kind of want their babies in bin to use off Gecko later. What they don't want in bin is their 2Ks. So it'll be interesting to see whether Hubert's like, you know what, we're going to take it one more turn, we're going to build a bit wider of a board, or whether he goes, you know, this is the turn, we want to start applying just enough pressure to be in a good spot.
Do you think it is correct to, like, as a BY Luffy player, do you think, are you worried he's going in this turn? Or are you happy if he gives you another turn here?
I think it really depends on what my hand is. If I've got like a couple of 2Ks, I'm kind of happy for him to swing and then, you know, counter out with those 2Ks. However, if I'm kind of running low on options, I need to make sure I am really careful. Because, for example, in this position, if I'm Gavin and I don't have another 2K in hand, I just use my only 2K to get out of this swing, and then Hubert goes, you know what? I'm fine. I'm done attacking. He can be in quite a bad spot. We do see Hubert swing another 5. These small pings are quite annoying because it does threaten a lot of rush to come down. Gavin countering out of this, though, can be quite a rough spot if he doesn't have that other 2K. Hopefully, though, because he has been quite willing to counter out of that swing, he probably does have another 2K, but it is quite telling. Even if he takes that swing, Hubert kind of knows he definitely must not have another 2K and kind of can go a lot harder. So it's a really hard choice from Gavin. It's kind of a lose-lose situation to take those swings or not.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely see just trying to draw more. If he draws another law here, he's in a really good position. Just seeing what he can get off the top of these draws here. Has a very healthy hand right now. Healthy hand for RP law player just means a lot of options. You can generally do what you like if you have the options in your hand. So no cost reduction is a bit rough for not being able to remove this Luffy. If it does live another turn, it does give Gavin an easier time to get to that 0 life and maybe do these lines where he can become that 9K a little bit quicker than he otherwise would. Seeing that we did have that finger pistol plus Gecko ripped from the hand, you must feel good as Hubert going, okay, maybe there is a chance I could play a little bit of a slower game, try and find these key Shariahs and these Bonclays to try and get them out, knowing that eventually they're going to become bigger swings that don't need that Don investment to be able to get cards from hand as well.
No, you're definitely right. And one of the big things you kind of think about if you're Hubert is how many more turns can I survive? I've got 2 blockers down. I now have 3 blockers down. And that Shariah is the biggest pain if you're a BY Luffy player because it copies the power of your leader. So if you're a 9K leader, man, that BY Luffy, that Shariah is swinging into BY Luffy for 9K. Or most of the time when BY goes for its full combo, the leader is going to be an 11K swing offensively. So normally that 11K is either going to remove a body or it's going to deal a damage because that's a massive swing. But up against Shariah, that's just 1 card out of Hubert's hand, which is crazy. So this definitely has to be a priority for Gavin to remove. We don't see Gavin shotgun many of these Luffy effects, so it'll be interesting if he does have that 2K in hand, which I don't see from him. There's a good chance we'll see something like the Kuzan come down to draw a card to try and get out of it, or we see this 5-cost Luffy do the same thing. Look, we're going to remove the Shariah. We're going to draw a card. I'm going to hope this is a 2K. If it's not a 2K, which it is a 2K, but we just got rid of our 5-cost Luffy, so we can't stabilize on 1 life. So it's kind of a rough spot. Gavin is able to take this life, though, with the 2K if he wants, but he's just happy to remove the Queen. And potentially we'll see some swings into the iron, just kind of going, look, I am going to make you go as aggressive as you need to be able to kill me because I'm on 1 life. You only have 2 swings. But Hubert, realizing this perfectly, going, he's on 1 life. He's not got a big hand. If he had a 2K, he would have shotgunned that 2K to awaken this turn. So he at most has 1 2K in hand at this point in time. So Hubert's just going, look, I'm in a great spot. He's got 4 cards left in hand. If I swing another 7, he'll go down to 2. And then there's a good potential to be able to go 9-9 with Kid Killer to close this game out.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely feel like Hubert. Yep. And Gavin just recognizing Hubert understands it and probably has the the Kid Killer in hand and just scoops and goes, okay, we're going next. I don't want to. I don't want to see that lore in front of me anymore. After it made me discard the 2 cards I needed out of my hand, and that was a very strong first game from Hubert. Just showing the power that Appy Law has. It's like you become a 9k leader as BY Luffy, but if you don't get to that point safely, it's very rough. You can definitely punish the BY player for like trying to get greedy with taking their own life. They need to do it in a very controlled manner while not losing these cards from hand, and just not having the threat of just losing the game randomly. It's very rough.
Definitely, and one of the things we saw was Gavin did counter that first 6k swing that got thrown down with the iron, and then he countered out the 5k swing that came down with the leader. If Gavin was able to take one of those 2 swings, he would have been able to awaken with his Luffy. So there was a chance he kind of was like, look, I don't know which situation's worse, so I have to rely on top decking a 2k / that 1 draw I get off the Rocket Luffy, or do I have to hope he doesn't have enough pressure to go in for Kid Killer? Gavin is in the finals though, so I'm sure he has plenty of practice with this and kind of knows what the odds are in each situation to win the game, and just has to make the best calculated decision that you can in that spot.
Yeah, 100%. So I would imagine that Gavin will be taking second this time.
It really depends. A lot of BY players actually prefer to go first into RP Law. The reason you're kind of happy to go first is you want to be able to play that 5-cost Luffy as safely as possible, and being able to use it to take your own life and it to be a body that can't be removed from your field. But Gavin has decided to go second. The reason you do want to go second is it means you can play Gecko quicker and easier. I think one of the big factors about it as well is how your RP Law player wants to play. If your RP Law player is definitely someone who likes to stall and play a longer game, especially if they're running cards like Iron, you're happy to take their second away because you know they're just drawing that extra card for going second, as well as they're not going to attack the first couple turns anyway, so you can safely play the Luffy on turn 6 anyway. But if they're an aggressive RP Law player and they like to just kind of push the brakes on, then you really have to go first. So it really depends on how your RP Law opponent plays. And as we saw, Hubert likes to take it slow. He likes to stall. He likes to starve the BY player. So Gavin taking full advantage of that knowledge and adapting and choosing to go second.
Yeah, no, I think it's really smart. It's definitely telling of how good these players are, that they can recognize even the smaller adjustments of, okay, well, it's actually better for me to go second, even though generally I want to go first, is a very huge situation. The look on Gavin's face is telling that he does not like his starting hand. It probably does not have what he's looking for, and I don't see any of the 2-drop kids in there, which is probably a bit of a rough situation to be in for him. So we'll have to see how this progresses through the game.
Definitely, we do see the draw of the Gecko. We do see that 10-drop Kuzan, which is one of the cards that BY likes to run to have a slightly better matchup into the seriously unfavored Bonnie game. We do see Hubert drop the Zorojiro, which is one of the better cards to drop when you're going for the style of strategy, as you can still swing and get its on attack effect, which is to get a Don inactive if you have 3 or less life. But Gavin completely recognizing that, going, I'm not swinging. You can get that life, but I'm not swinging. That Zorojiro can stay there, and I'm just not going to swing. And Gavin's just, look, the longer this game goes on, the more chance Gavin has, because he needs to draw his pieces. He does not have them at the moment. He has a Gecko. He has a 10-drop Kuzan. If there's a chance that there will be no swings before 10-drop Kuzan come down, that can be a serious line that Gavin actually wants to take to really stabilize this game, because that 10-drop Kuzan will remove a body, and it's just a big body on board. But you can only do it if you're super healthy, and especially into RP Law, you kind of have to hope that Hubert just doesn't want to swing. And to be fair, Hubert may not swing until he has this really wide board in the first place. But we do see the 5-cost Luffy come down. We do see Gavin take his own life, trashing a Gecko, which can be quite rough. But this could be a good sign for Gavin. He's happy to start attacking now. He's like, look, now you can get the ram from the Zorojiro. We're kind of happy for this to come down. Hubert takes a little life. Gavin's like, look, I found my 5-cost Luffy. I have a couple babies in hand. I've got a Gecko in hand. And I have some self-awakeners for next turn. I'm happy with the spot with where I'm at. I can become a 9k leader quite comfortably going into next turn if my Luffy doesn't get removed. Hubert putting 2 cards aside. They may be 2 reducers. Can't really tell what they are.
Yeah, I think that's huge. If he can If Hubert can remove the Luffy this turn, I think he's in a decent spot just to slow down the game again and just go, okay, I'm just going to keep on building this board. I'll swing it with my Zoroark. I'm almost at 10 Don. I'm at 8 right now. I could be at 10 even with a reduction next turn if I really want to be. And so I think it's very smart to just go, okay, I'll force you to have enough life minusing effects, life taking effects, to be able to play this perfect turn on 10 Don for that BY Luffy. I think if he can make it uncomfortable for Gavin to get there or unoptimal, it's actually he's going to be in a good position. Even if he does have to get to those 9 play turns, if he only has a few cards in hand, I think it's actually still a good position for Hubert to be in.
Definitely, and Hubert deciding what kind of lines of play he wants to make. He plays this 5-cost Kid, which is quite a good card to stabilize. Means that when he Don minuses this turn, he doesn't lose as much for it. He's deciding to straight away go for the Don minus, get the Iron to ramp in rest, and then the Kid will ramp in active. He has those 4 Don left, and we know what Hubert's favorite card is. We know how many cards Gavin has in hand. That law is coming right back down. This is where, if we're Gavin, we're praying he doesn't hit the cards we want. We're praying that the cards that get hit are not the Gecko. They're not a Gecko. They are a Rocket Luffy, which we're happy to see in the discard pile because we can put that straight back in our life. And a 2K, not the worst, not the best. The important thing is Gecko is still in our hand. I think if you're Gavin, you would have just really secretly hoped he just ripped the 10-cost Kuzan out of hand because that has no business being in Gavin's hand right about now. Gavin deciding what his lines are. I think we see 2 Self-Awakeners in hand. I think one of the big things, though, is because he ripped that Luffy, Gavin was really hoping to be able to stabilize on 1 life, but at the moment can't really do that because he doesn't have another 5-cost. He's hoping to draw a 5-cost here. He does draw the Luffy, so he can stabilize on that 5 life. Obviously, he would prefer it to be a Rocket Luffy, but we are kind of happy for it to still be that other Luffy. He'll only be able... Oh no, he will be able to do the full combo, so being a 9k leader, being on 1 life. Honestly, there's no better position to be in as BY. 1 life, 9k leader. You kind of put them in this position where normally when you've got no life, they can use Gordon to remove it. He is deciding, however, to use Markino instead of that Hiyori in hand, maybe because he just doesn't have the card he wants to put into life. Because he really wants that Rocket Luffy to be able to get rid of some of the important cards in his opponent's hand. We're going for Sabo, Baby Sabo first. Doesn't need to remove anything yet. He's got enough. Baby Sabo will draw 2, trash 2. There is that chance, so that I was actually mistaken. We don't have that Baby Luffy in Gavin's hand. He's doing the slow reveal to see what card he drew. I don't know if you saw his face, but I think he looked a little bit happy when he saw his face. Maybe not. That hand doesn't look it. He doesn't have enough to pay 1 to use the Searcher as well as use a Baby, but he'll probably just use the Searcher anyway to just stabilize as much as he can to try find it for the next turn. Being at 7k isn't actually as good as being at 9k here. Gavin finds it on the last card, but unfortunately he doesn't have enough Don to continue playing that card this turn. If he was able to play it, he could remove 1 of Hubert's body. He's just swinging 9. He's swinging at 9 with lead. With both his Luffy's turning, swinging 9. Hubert deciding what to do. Wouldn't be surprised to kind of see a block so he can stay on high life. I also wouldn't be surprised if Hubert does some aggressive lines going into next turn. Because he has that ramp off the Zoroark if he needs, as well as he has that Gordon, which can be used to bottom deck the Sabo. So it could be quite a bad spot, especially because Gavin has so many cards in hand. Hubert can spend his Don on his favorite card.
He's going to do it again. I think he asked Gavin cards in hand, and then Gavin said 8, and then smiled and went, oh no, it's coming. I feel it.
He knows he's been down that road one time before. Hubert's at that point where if he pulls these good cards out of Gavin's hand, it is a really bad spot for Gavin to be into. And then afterwards, he can follow up using the Gordon to just bottom deck the Sabo. So all of the swings that Hubert will be doing this turn will be going to life, just removing more cards out of the BY's hand. And Gavin has to do his best job to stay on high life, because if this Sabo gets bottom decked, he doesn't really have many 5 costs to go into next turn with Gecko. So it is looking a little bit grim here for Gavin.
Yeah, 100%, especially because of that leader effect where if you have face-up life, they will go to the bottom of your deck instead of going to the trash. So if Hubert is able to remove that life from Gavin's leader, that 5-drop will be going to the bottom deck. It won't be able to be played again.
Definitely. So there's a couple ways for Hubert to sequence his turn out, and it really just depends on how much Don he wants to use to swing, as well as whether he will what card he wants to play off of his leader effect.
I think it's probably just going to be playing at the raise max, playing at this blocker, using this Don up, and then using the effect afterwards.
So he's decided to minus on the Luffy, so it is 5,000 power. It's now got reduced. And I wouldn't be surprised if we just see him start to swing 5 into this Luffy, because he has another one in hand. He's going for the Lord. Look, he's like, I don't want you to have cards in hand.
Yep, understandable.
I don't appreciate that you have cards in hand. I didn't get Gecko off you last time, so this is my chance to get Gecko off you this time. Looks like we still see the Geckos in hand. 2Ks, which will be quite rough. Kid does get the ramp back, and he'll be able to ramp another one with Zorojuro. Be surprised if we don't see an attachment from... Oh no, we're just going to see Gavin give up the Luffy, and then Zorojuro is just going to swing 4 just to get that free ramp.
Yep. 5 Don left and active. We still have leader effect as well. I could see the raise max come out. Swing. I think you could potentially just swing for 7 first. Use some of the Don ends. Like, okay, well, if he blocks and just lets it die, that's okay. But he's checking. If he doesn't have one in the drop, it is probably correct just to remove this meter. So I don't need... yes, I go down in Don a lot. But the bonus of you not having access to these cards is huge. It just means that your drop is just getting empty of all these 5-cost cards you need. So definitely could see some more swings come through. I think putting in some pressure, especially with this Missile Sunday and leader, Shariah coming through is huge. Swinging 10 through with the kid.
Hubert's pretty much just saying, look, I have made the decision that you don't have access to a second Sabo, or even if you do have access to a second Sabo, I can potentially bottom deck it if I've got another Raise Max or Gordon. If you're sitting with no actionable cards in your life / no actionable cards in your drop, I'm not really worried about what you're doing next. So you have to show me a 5-cost Sabo for you to even still be in this game, to be discarded off of your leader effect. And then you have to show me a Gecko. That's 2 big cards you have to show me to even have a remote chance of still winning this game. And as you can see by Gavin's face, he hasn't shotgunned it. He's not going, I definitely have it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with only 1 5-cost being in the discard pile for Gavin. It can be quite a tough decision here. And this is kind of what happens. So Gavin has cut the 5-cost ace and the baby ace from his deck. So he has less targets for his leader effect and less babies to kind of stabilize off of. So sometimes when you're not able to see your Garps early and not Sabos don't draw you into more Sabos, this is kind of the bricked up hand you can have in the background. Does look like there's another Sabo in Gavin's hand, but Gavin kind of has to then make a decision. Okay, well, I can discard a baby Luffy from hand, but that means I'll be going -1 card in hand with my Sabo. But if I do that, does he have another reducer? Hubert's line of play makes me think he has another line of reducer, because he's just done a big 10, and Gavin's not even bothering to play it out. Looks like Hubert has just won. Gavin kind of knows that he has no cards in hand and just goes, look, it doesn't matter what happens, I'm just going to end up losing this game.
I want to go to the pub. Let me leave. I'm going to the pub. I don't want to play this game anymore.
But that is congratulations to Hubert. I don't think man realizes that he's just gone undefeated in entire regionals, beating every opponent that he has come against. RP Law has won its first event here in OCE, and it will be its last event as well. So yep. Hubert gets that last-minute victory in with RP Law. And that is the wrap for our top card for our tournament. We had over 350 players for this weekend, and Hubert ended up going undefeated. He was the best of the best this weekend. His RP Law plays were immaculate. Nothing that we could really comment on because it all worked. There was nothing he really did wrong all weekend, and it shows he was able to get his first place victory. So congratulations to Hubert, and congratulations to everyone else who made top 16, top 8, and so forth.
Yeah, it's been an awesome weekend. It's been a pleasure to commentate with you, Max. Thank you to LPG for running the event. Thank you to Marcus behind the scenes for doing everything for us. Thank you for everyone to turning up and such a successful weekend, I'd say.
Yeah, it's been a great weekend. It's been great to be here commentating for you guys. And thank you all for watching. I hope it was an enjoyable experience. And this is us signing off for the last time. We will catch you guys next time.
Make up for your sins in the church. You do it in the streets. You do it at home. The rest is bullshit and you know it.